Welcome to God Tier Fanfiction. Today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Saved Uchiha from the Massacre. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Wearing his Anbu Black Ops armor and arms, all but the mask, Itachi Uchiha sat by himself in his dimly lit room. This evening marked the beginning of an extremely significant assignment, perhaps the most significant he would ever undertake. Even though it was late and most people ought to be asleep, everything was set up. With one stroke, he could avert a civil war if his efforts tonight were successful. The precarious truce between the five great shinobi nations and their precarious power balance could collapse otherwise. A 13-year-old boy was burdened with a hefty load by fate. Itachi awoke from his meditating state, having long since completed the material preparations for the expedition. He opened his room's door quietly, crept out, and shut it behind him. He made a detour to his younger brother's bedroom, padded silently through the house, and cracked open the door just enough to look inside with one eye. Sasuke, who was just 7 years old, slept soundly in his bed. Itachi tenderly caressed the leaf sign on his forehead protector as he observed his brother's sleeping body for a brief while. He was doing this for these reasons. In order to avoid waking his sibling, Itachi carefully shut the door once more. After that, he went to his parents' room. Itachi was able to peek in from around a corner since the door was unusually left open. His father was not visible to him, but he could see his mother's sleeping figure. After that, Itachi made sure the Uchiha clan head had left the house by swiftly and quietly searching the remainder of it. His task appeared to have finished in its first phase. When he was certain that this was the case, he left the house. Itachi stepped outdoors and started moving quickly in the direction of the Hokage residence. He was well aware of the possible repercussions while maintaining a laser-like focus on the current goal. This might have an impact on his family's, the village's, and the Uchiha's future. He made contact with his left shoulder while running. It featured the red spiral tattoo he had gotten 2 years prior, which symbolized his Anbu Black Ops affiliation. Despite his clan and youth, the Hokage had selected him because of his skills and ability to carry out such crucial tasks. Wearing a dark timepiece and staying in the shadows, Fugaku Uchiha moved through the darkness. Nobody should know what he was doing or, if they did, who he was because this was a covert meeting. But he couldn't resist wearing the Uchiha insignia beneath his cloak on the back of his shirt. That was too much a part of who he was, and he was too proud of it to let it go. Fugaku entered the Hokage residence covertly via a rear door close to the Anbu Black Ops offices. Itachi had left him a message informing him that he needed to meet him here and that Fugaku was plotting a coup that would benefit from some sort of intelligence. The Uchiha head believed his son, his judgment, and his conviction, but he didn't understand why his son hadn't told him through straightforward word of mouth. Fugaku took off his hood and entered a dimly lit chamber. He heard someone else's footsteps in the room and asked, "Itachi, are you here? Is that you?" Fugaku had to protect his eyes as they acclimated to the abrupt and drastic change in illumination due to the blinding brightness that filled the room. He saw a figure when he stepped out in front of the light source. His eyes identified the person standing there as they adjusted to the new circumstances. "Lord Hokage," Fugaku murmured while glancing beyond his hands. "What are you doing here? It's rather late." The Hokage raised a smoking pipe to his lips and chuckled briefly. "I could say the same to you, Fugaku." Fugaku put his hands down. "Why are you here, Lord Hokage?" Hiruzen Sarutobi pulled on his pipe and exhaled the smoke in silence for a while. "I know about your coup plans, Fugaku." The Uchiha stepped back and used his Sharingan. "What are you talking about, sir?" As two people emerged from the darkness beside him, the Hokage closed his eyes. Itachi was to his left, and Shisui Uchiha was to his right. Surprised to find the two brightest young stars in his clan, one of whom was his own son and heir, standing alongside the Hokage in this situation, Fugaku rapidly and repeatedly glanced between the two. "Wah!" said Fugaku. He took off his cloak and pulled out a kunai. "Itachi, Shisui, help me. Together we can take him." With their Sharingan active, the two stood motionless and gazed at him. Itachi then took a few hesitant steps forward and slightly to his right, positioning himself between the Hokage and Fugaku. Shisui mimicked Itachi's motions. Fugaku was stunned as he stood there. "Itachi, Shisui, what are you doing? This is for the good of the clan. There is nothing more important than the clan." Shisui and Itachi exchanged glances before the latter started talking. "I'm sorry, Lord Fugaku, but we believe differently. The village is more important than any one clan, even our own. We are doing this for the sake of the clan as well," Itachi replied. You really think that the Uchiha alone can defeat the whole of the village? Even if we could, what of the war that would inevitably follow? If we go through with this, we put ourselves at jeopardy? From behind the two young Uchiha, the Hokage remarked, Fugaku, please reconsider your present course. There is no need for this. It is not too late to let this all disappear. Angrily, Fugaku clenched his teeth. You expect us to stand by and let ourselves be marginalized and beaten down by you. Every day you, everyone in the village, treats us with suspicion and contempt. The Hokage sighed deeply. I fully admit that this attitude is readily found within the village. However, your current actions only lend credence to those beliefs. You should be showing them that they are wrong. Fugaku spat on the ground after scoffing at the assertion, we are. Itachi moved forward one step. Please, father, see reason. Fugaku assumed a fighting position. Please, son, don't betray the clan. Don't betray me. With a subtle yet painful face, the younger Uchiha stared back at his father. He averted his gaze and closed his eyes. Shisui. The other Uchiha murmured, I'm sorry, Lord Fugaku, and moved to face the clan head. When Shisui's Sharingan transformed into a four-pronged pinwheel, Fugaku's eyes grew wide with astonishment. Was the Mangekyo really awakened by the boy? Fugaku felt his entire reality shift as blood started to drip from the young man's eye like tears. Itachi observed as Shisui used the Koto Amatsukami, a genjutsu that enables its operator to control the victim's mind, on his father. Fugaku's body language changed almost instantly. He left his fighting stance and his body relaxed. His forehead touched the earth as he dropped on his knees in a deep bow, his kunai clattering on the floor. Itachi found it difficult to witness his father, who was usually so strong and arrogant, acting so respectfully. The Hokage approached him from behind and put soft, comforting hands on Shisui's and his shoulders. Itachi remained silent, but he could sense the gesture relieving part of the burden on his heart. He turned off his Sharingan. I'm sorry, Fugaku muttered. It was wrong of me to plan a coup, I see that now. The Hokage sighed and took a deep drag from his pipe. You may stand, Fugaku. I understand, and I'm sorry that the situation in the village deteriorated to the point that you felt the need to take drastic action. I will do my utmost to change that. Fugaku stood and said, Thank you, sir, with tears in his eyes. Itachi was unable to recall when, if at all, his father had shed tears. What exactly had Shisui's jutsu accomplished? But this will also necessitate change from the Uchiha, the Hokage stated. Fugaku raised his gaze from the ground. I fear that I am not the man for the task. The Hokage said, Then what do you suggest? I will step down as leader of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku replied. Itachi's eyes were wide with astonishment. He hadn't anticipated anything quite like this. Out of all the probable consequences from this expedition, he turned to face Shisui, who appeared equally stunned. However, the Hokage appeared to accept it. Then I guess that makes Itachi the new Uchiha clan head. When would this come into effect? I will call a clan meeting to make it official as soon as feasibly possible, Fugaku said. The Hokage told Itachi, afterwards you and I would need to meet to discuss our future course of action, to which Itachi simply nodded. Then he softly put his hand on Itachi's shoulder. Until that time, I am exempting you from your duties with the Anbu, he remarked, grinning kindly. Itachi said, Thank you, sir, while gazing into space. He was roused from his reclusive mood by a pat on the shoulder. Then, with his hands behind his back, the Hokage left the room. Uchiha stood by himself in the room after he left the three. With his Sharingan disabled and the Genjutsu casting eye closed, Shisui inquired, What do you want to do, Itachi? Go home, Itachi muttered. The back door that Fugaku had used to enter the Hokage residence earlier was where the three departed. They returned to the Uchiha compound slowly and silently. Fugaku trailed behind, his head down, and none of the men spoke. With a cautious palm over Itachi's eye, Shisui moved to the side and slightly behind him. Itachi led the group in silence. He caressed the hidden leaf sign on his forehead protection and thought about his younger brother. Then he covered his Anbu tattoo with his left shoulder. Shisui stopped Itachi when they reached the compound, but Fugaku went home. Shisui remarked, We did it, while continuing to tend to his eye. We did, Itachi answered. Itachi had been asking himself this question the whole way home when Shisui asked it. What do you plan to do now? Itachi raised his gaze to the Uchiha crest that hung over the gate that led to the remainder of the hamlet. I do everything in my power to ensure that this never comes again. You'll have me, Shisui assured her. Itachi grinned, but his gaze remained fixed on the crest above the gates. I'll need you. After a few interval of standing, Shisui turned to head toward his own house. Itachi remained motionless, gazing at the Uchiha crest that hung over the gates. He listened to everything around him, but the sounds of quiet were all he could hear. Itachi sat in the family gardens and thought about what had happened the week before in silence. He was supposed to assume head of the Uchiha clan in an unanticipated turn of events, as his father had resigned after being subjected to the Kodo Amatsukami at Shisui's hands. The official announcement of this leadership transition will take place during the clan gathering tomorrow. For now, at least, the Uchiha coup had been averted. Itachi's thoughts were interrupted by his younger brother's voice. "Brother, do you have a moment?" Itachi peered over his shoulder at Sasuke. "Yes, Sasuke?" Sasuke shuffled his feet and cast an anxious glance at the ground. Then he braced himself. "Is it true that father is making you clan head?" This question caught Itachi off guard. Right now, only Itachi, Fugaku, Shisui, and the third Hokage should be aware of this arrangement. "Where did you hear this?" Sasuke turned away and pouted slightly in response. "I overheard father and mother talking about it," he said. Itachi gestured for his brother to take a seat beside him, and the expression of surprise on his face changed to a gentle grin. "Yes, it is true. Is there something concerning you about it?" With a furrowed brow, Sasuke took a seat beside Itachi. "I don't know. Maybe." "Come on," Itachi commanded. "You can tell me." Sasuke glanced toward the floor. "It's just that, father is already making you clan head, and you're not even 14 yet. You're his favorite, I just can't seem to catch up." Itachi inhaled deeply and briefly gazed off into the distance. He knew what this was about because he had recently had a similar discussion with Sasuke. "It's alright if you hate me for it. I already told you that I will always be there for you, even if it's just as an obstacle." Itachi noticed that Sasuke's fists were clenched and began to shake. "I know you told me that, brother. Believe me, I've tried, but no matter what you or I do, or how much father praises you over me, I can't hate you." Itachi grinned. "Well, that's good to hear." Sasuke looked up at Itachi with a somewhat surprised expression and stopped trembling. That soon became a smile, and the two brothers chuckled. Itachi remarked, "You know, Sasuke, there is one thing that I have a hard time doing that you may be able to surpass me in," as the laughter subsided. Curious about what his brother would say next, Sasuke suddenly became focused. "What is it?" Itachi reclined on his hands. "I was never particularly good at making friends. Perhaps that is something you could do better than me." Sasuke muttered to himself, "Friends. Tell me, Sasuke," Itachi replied, "you've been at the academy for a while now, are there any classmates that you feel close to? Any that have caught your eye?" Before responding, Sasuke was silent for a while, reflecting. "No, I haven't been really friendly with any of the other kids. Well, actually." As Sasuke drifted off, Itachi asked, "Yes? There is this one kid, but he's more annoying than anything else," Sasuke went on. Itachi said, "All right, and who is this kid?" "Naruto Uzumaki," Sasuke said. "He's the class clown and he's always challenging me. But he's just a loser, it's annoying." Itachi was shocked to hear that specific child singled out, and one of his eyebrows went up. "Is that what you really think of him? What do you actually know about him?" Sasuke gave a shoulder shrug. "I told you, he's just an annoying, hopeless loser." Itachi questioned, "Is that all there is to it?" Sasuke replied, "What do you mean?" "Well, think about his reasons for what he does, why he keeps challenging you, why he keeps playing the class clown," Itachi said. Sasuke replied, "Well, I don't know. Come on, there has to be something," Itachi urged. Sasuke struggled to think of anything to say. Well, he's last in the class, and..." Itachi frowned, realizing that Sasuke was just as awful at this as he had been. For whatever reason, their friends managed to go by them without really drawing their notice. "Alright. He's last in the class and you're first. He sees you so far ahead of him and yet refuses to be left behind, believing that he'll catch up. It's kind of similar to how you see me, probably." "But, you're always helping me," Sasuke replied, "at least, when you have the time." Itachi said, "Then why don't you help him?" With a startled expression on his face, Sasuke glanced up at his brother. Then he glanced back at the floor. Furthermore, Itachi added, "Naruto is an orphan, he never knew his parents and he has no siblings. The village as a whole has ostracized him. He's probably a class clown because he's desperate for attention, any kind at all." For a brief moment, Sasuke's expression was one of profound realization, but it quickly changed to one of perplexity. "Wait, how do you know so much about Naruto?" Itachi gave his younger brother a gentle grin. tapped his forehead as usual, and got to his feet. Maybe I'll tell you about it some other time, Sasuke. Unlike Shisui, who always sat at the back of the Uchiha secret meeting chamber, Itachi sat quietly in the front. Itachi was by himself while his parents gathered the clan members outside for the meeting, which was scheduled to take place in just over an hour and at which his leadership would be declared. Shisui, Itachi's best friend and cousin, entered the room. He approached Itachi and took a seat beside him. It's the moment of truth, isn't it? Itachi said, yes, but the struggle could just be starting. Shisui questioned, what do you mean? We've removed your father from power, the coup has been averted. My father may have been planning the coup, but the impetus behind it remains, Itachi said. Our clansmen remain disgruntled. I see, Shisui replied, and things might just get worse. Without Lord Fugaku to direct their energies and keep them in line with his plan, they might just let their anger boil over. Itachi gave a nod of approval, and if they don't agree with my decisions, then they might just direct their anger at me. Shisui touched Itachi's shoulder. They'll have to target both of us. Itachi laughed a little. They probably will, at that. The first members of the Uchiha clan start to enter the conference room. Shisui got to his feet and began to make his way to his regular location near one of the rear corners. He answered, don't worry too much about it, and turned to leave. As they sit down, many of the clan members look at Itachi. Some appear intrigued, some perplexed, and a few skeptical. This made sense because, despite being the heir and one of the clan's most skilled shinobi, Itachi was still an adolescent and had only lately been permitted to attend these gatherings. He was expected to remain in the background, listening to his elders and speaking only when called upon. Fugaku and Makoto, Itachi's parents, were the last members of the clan to enter. As is customary for the head of the clan, the former positioned himself in the center of the room, slightly ahead of Itachi and to his right. Tradition also mandated that Makoto sit behind and to her husband's right. Fugaku was the last to take a seat after standing for a while and looking around the room. This was the formal start of the meeting. Tayaki Uchiha, the proprietor of the renowned Uchiha Senbei store, said, all right Fugaku, what is this meeting about? We just had one not 2 weeks ago. He mostly attended these clan gatherings as a formality because he was not a shinobi and had little interest in politics. Tayaki, Fugaku said, I understand that you're annoyed about the unplanned nature of this meeting, but there is a matter of great importance that I wish to make known to the whole of the clan. Then let's hear it, Tayaki replied. Fugaku looked around the room for a time before audibly clearing his throat. Itachi found the room's silence to be suffocating. Fugaku pointed to Itachi and said, I am announcing my abdication as clan head. I am passing the leadership of the Uchiha on to my eldest son, Itachi. What, and, did he just say that? And, how did this happen? Were the common murmurs as the meeting room erupted in commotion. With his eyes closed, Fugaku gestured for everyone in the group to stop talking by holding out his palm. They obeyed. One of the senior shinobi in the clan eventually got up and spoke. Sir, are you sure that this is wise? Itachi is but a teenager and you are hardly an old man. This decision was not made based on age, Yashira, Fugaku said. I have made it on the basis of what I believe to be for the good of the clan. Yashira shot back, is this truly for the good of the clan? This is a pivotal moment in the history of the Uchiha. Is a change in leadership truly helpful? To a child no less? I would remind you that I was only a few years older than Itachi when I inherited the clan, Fugaku said. Yes sir, Yashira replied, but you inherited it when your father died on the battlefield. It was forced upon you by circumstance. And you were ready for the responsibility. Fugaku shot back, and I think that my son is more prepared than I was. Itachi could have added his own words and perhaps enumerated his achievements, but he didn't want to come out as conceited. Particularly because it seems that some members of the clan already had this belief. Anabi Uchiha stood up beside Yashira and said, Itachi is just an insolent whelp. He needs to learn proper respect before he can claim to lead the mighty Uchiha. Now, Tayaki said, we all know how accomplished Itachi is, even at his young age. I trust him and Fugaku both. If he says that Itachi is ready to lead, then I say go right ahead. They stayed sitting, but another voice entered the conversation. I would like to know what it is that Itachi plans to do in regards to the coup. As Yashira said, this is an important time for the clan, probably the most since the founding of the Hidden Leaf itself, Tekka Uchiha replied. Itachi inhaled deeply as he readied himself to respond to the query. I would like to postpone the coup plans for the moment. Postpone? Exclaimed Anabi. If they weren't instantly placated, he and Yashira appeared prepared to fight. I do not think that this is the opportune time, Itachi blurted out. The village is stronger than it has ever been. We should wait for the inevitable decline, bide our time and pick the perfect moment to strike. Yashara and Inabi relaxed and appeared to be tentatively consenting, if not outright accepting. Very well, we will wait for the moment, Tekka said. And abide by your decision, Fugaku sir. Thank you, Fugaku replied, and to make it clear, I am still retaining my position as the military police chief. Itachi will continue as an Anbu with reduced duties. The now former clan head took a moment to make sure everyone understood before nodding and ending the meeting for the last time. Itachi stayed seated while the other Uchiha filed out of the room. When they were the only people in the room, Shisui came over and took a seat, telling them that plans are delayed instead of scrapped entirely. Interesting tactic. We will see how long it works. Indeed, Itachi answers. Yashara, Inabi, and Tekka will be the ones to watch. They're the ones that have been the primary instigators of the coup and they will be the ones to let it go last. I agree, Shisui responds. Your father may have been the one planning the details, but those three have been the driving force behind creating those plans. Itachi remarked, in any case we should be going, and got to his feet. Together, he and Shisui exited the meeting room, prepared to take on the mission at hand. Sasuke saw the sight below while perched in the tree branches. Shuriken were being thrown by Naruto Uzumaki at an improvised target that was fixed to a tree branch. Even though the majority of the projectiles were missing, Sasuke found the target to be a very crude effigy of him, and with each miss, Naruto would become more irritated and miss more spectacularly. As a result, the Sasuke target was mainly unharmed. This had been going on for at least 3 hours, practically since the academy's classes ended for the day. It's likely that Sasuke's mother was concerned that he hadn't returned home yet, but he was too preoccupied in taking in the spectacle to consider that. Whatever else could be said about Naruto, Sasuke was now aware of the child's nearly terrifying dedication to his training. Sasuke softly landed behind Naruto after deciding he had finally seen enough. You know, you're doing it wrong. Naruto scowled as he turned to face Sasuke after jumping in shock. With a disdainful tone, he questioned, what are you doing here? I told you, you're doing it wrong, Sasuke firmly retorted. That doesn't answer my question, Naruto began. Whatever, just get out of my face, you jerk. He then took the final shuriken from his holster and hurled it in the direction of the target. It flew by, brushing the cheek of the effigy. With a frustrated growl, Naruto dashed to get his training weapons. After gathering them, he hurried back to his location and hurled them hard to the ground, disregarding the holster. Naruto hurled another recklessly, missing the target by nearly a full foot. With a sigh, Sasuke discreetly moved closer, grabbed a shuriken, and hurled it at the target, striking the picture of himself squarely in the eyes. That's how you should do it. Naruto gave the Uchiha lad a fierce look. There's no need to show off, bastard. Now go away. I'm not showing off, Sasuke answered coolly. I'm trying to help you. Furious, Naruto stamped his feet. Yeah. Well, guess what? I don't need your help, I'm going to be Hokage. Sasuke shouted back, his rage boiling over. Oh, yeah? Not like that you won't. Just watch, I'll be the Hokage instead. Sasuke quickly blocked Naruto's blow, tossing the blonde to the ground. Sasuke picked himself up and began to leave. Naruto shouted, hey, from the floor. Don't you dare leave, I'm not finished with you yet. Sasuke continued to advance without pausing or turning his head. Yes, you are. Itachi sat in his room with a large number of handwritten notes on various pieces of paper strewn all over the place. He had been working feverishly to devise a strategy to bridge the gap between his town and clan, but all he could think of were temporary fixes and half measures. Loud sounds and noises from the entryway diverted Itachi's attention. Itachi heard his mother ask, Sasuke, where have you been? Wait, where do you think you're going? Somewhere, mother, Sasuke answered. He seemed to be in a gloomy mood. Before Itachi could confirm that, he glanced out his door and saw Sasuke storming past with a fierce frown. Itachi stood up and moved to the doorway, peering out to see his younger brother go off to his bed. Itachi turned to see his mother coming around the corner and opening her mouth to shout. I'll talk to him, Itachi said. Makoto hesitated for a moment, then shook her head and sighed in frustration. Fine. It's just so strange, him coming home so late without so much as an explanation. I know, Itachi answered. I'll look into it. All right, Makoto replied. I suppose I should get dinner started now that Sasuke's back. Itachi went in search of his younger brother after his mother left. It didn't take him long to locate him pacing the family gardens. Something wrong, Sasuke? The child looked up at his sibling while kicking at some mud. Nothing. Itachi arched an eyebrow and said, "Really?" With a half-angry, half-guilty expression. Sasuke came to a halt. "I talked to Naruto today." Itachi did not express it, but he was pleasantly surprised. "How did it go?" "Badly," was Sasuke's response. "I tried to help him, but he said I was a show-off and yelled at me. I got mad and yelled back." Itachi said, "Uh-huh. Were you showing off?" Sasuke paused, gazed at Itachi, and blinked. No, I tried to show him to do the throws that he was practicing." Itachi cut in, "Don't you think that can look like showing off?" Sasuke was about to reply, but he remained silent. "Maybe you should try again, this time without showing off," Itachi replied. "Maybe he's just not an exceptional shinobi. Maybe I can't help him and we can't be friends." Sasuke shrugged in response. Itachi asked, taken aback, "What? You said that the Uchiha are exceptional shinobi," Sasuke replied. "That's why we're in charge of the police, right?" Itachi had a flash of insight, but it would have to wait. He dropped to his knees in front of Sasuke and took the youngster by the shoulders. "Listen, Sasuke, being a Uchiha does not make you better than anyone else. Anyone can be exceptional, and even a Uchiha can be less than great. Now, I want you to." There was a loud knock on the front door, interrupting Itachi. "Hold on, Sasuke, let me get that." "Is Itachi in there? We want to talk to him," the young clan head shouted as he approached the front door. His mother was going to answer the door when Itachi turned the corner into the entry hall. She retreated when she saw him. "It's for you." Itachi walked past Makoto and inquired, "Where's father?" "He's at work," she replied. "He's been engrossing himself with police business ever since he stepped down." "Why?" Itachi opened the door shortly after his mother had returned inside. "Just wondering," he said. Yashira, Anabi, and Tekka Uchiha were standing outside. Yashira remarked, "Ah, Itachi, we were just looking for you." "Yes," Itachi said. "Can I help you?" Anabi stepped out in front of the tiny gathering and asked, "What did you do to your father, whelp?" Itachi was taken aback by the inquiry and said, "I'm sorry, what?" Tekka took Anabi by the shoulder and pulled him back with gentleness. "We're sorry, we've just been thinking about what happened at the last clan meeting and we have some questions." Itachi warily replied, "Okay, you may ask." Yashira asked, "Has your father been acting strange lately?" Itachi lied and said, "Not so far as I can tell. To tell the truth, I've been so busy with my duties that I'm not sure if I would notice." This was at least somewhat accurate. "Is it possible that he's being influenced by someone, perhaps even the village leadership?" Tekka inquired. Itachi inhaled deeply, appearing to consider a notion he had never given any thought to. "I don't think so." "Enough of this farce," Anabi declared, shoving his fellow countryman aside. "What kind of genjutsu have you used on your father, Itachi? We know it was you." Itachi blinked multiple times and shook his head in shock. "I've never put my father under any genjutsu." "Why would you even ask that?" Tekka restrained Anabi by grabbing his shoulder once more, this time with greater force. "You have been acting strange ever since you joined the Anbu. That, and we believe you capable of such a feat. Of all the clan, only Shisui is your superior in the use of genjutsu." Itachi raised an eyebrow. "Then are you also suspecting him?" "No," Yashira replied. "His loyalty to the clan is well known and beyond question." Itachi sighed, frustrated by the idiots he was talking to. "You should not let your own preconceptions blind you." Yashira activated his Sharingan and demanded angrily, "What was that?" Itachi's frustration with his clan's conceit started to surface when he said, "You should not let your inflated sense of self-importance color your perceptions nor discount any possibilities. You call yourself Uchiha and think yourself superior, without gauging the capabilities of those you would make your enemies. Watch yourself now," advised Yashira. "You may be clan head, but we're still your elders." Itachi became enraged. He swiftly hit Tekka across the jaw with his left fist after jabbing Yashira in the stomach with his right, then turned and kicked Anabi in the stomach, sending him flying back several feet. Itachi grabbed Tekka by the shoulders before he could get back up and threw him, catching Yashira in the process and launching both of them onto Anabi. Itachi moved forward a short distance till he was above the disorganized mound of Uchiha. With his arms crossed and his face grim, he gazed down at them. With seething rage, the three older shinobi turned around to face the young clan head. Fugaku entered the scene and inquired, "What is going on here?" "Sir, permission to arrest Itachi Uchiha," Anabi said as he climbed to his feet and shoved his fellow countryman away. "Denied," Fugaku angrily exclaimed. It was encouraging to see that he could still speak with authority. We went over this during the meeting. If you have any problems with it, keep it to yourselves. With reluctance, Yashira got up and said, "Yes, sir." He then led his fellow countrymen out of the building. "You will not win their loyalty through intimidation," Itachi, Fugaku told his son. "I know," Itachi said, taking a big breath in response. "It's just, Fugaku remarked, "Don't worry about it, son, you'll think of something," as he moved past Itachi and entered the house. "Actually, father," Itachi replied. Fugaku turned to face his kid. "Yes? I have thought of something. I would like to integrate us with the rest of the village's shinobi. Other ninja will be allowed into the police force and more of our own will join the other divisions." Interesting, Fugaku answered. "Have you spoken to the Hokage about this?" "I'm thinking of meeting him tomorrow," Itachi answered, "if that is all right with you." Fugaku nodded. He turned back to the home and said, "It is. You have my support. All the way, son, to the end." Itachi gave a quiet smile. "Thank you, father." Without saying anything, the father and son strolled back inside the house. The remainder of the day passed without incident. Itachi was seated in one of the Hokage residence's secret back rooms, an internal space designed for covert meetings that had 2 chairs and a small table. He didn't have to be there. As newly instated clan head, he would have been well within his rights to have a meeting with the Hokage. But Itachi's honed Enbu instincts, natural propensity for secrecy, and the current situation in the Uchiha clan made him choose to keep the meeting private. The third Hokage lit his pipe as he walked into the room. "Now, what do you have for me, Itachi?" Itachi leaned forward in his seat. "I have a plan to de-escalate relations between the Uchiha and the village." "Oh," the Hokage said, sounding almost amused as he sat down in the chair across from Itachi. "This should be interesting." Itachi took a deep breath. "I want to integrate the clan in with the rest of the village more. Open the military police to non-Uchiha and transfer more of our own to the regular forces." Hiruzen said, "That is an interesting thought." Then, perplexing Itachi, he turned to look at a plain wall. "What do you think, old friend?" Itachi was shocked to hear the response, risky to say the least, from beyond the wall. "Show yourself, Danzo," the third replied. "Secrecy has failed you on this occasion." The elder moved through the wall by phasing through it with a secret jutsu. Then Danzo turned to face Itachi, scrutinizing him cruelly with his piercing one-eyed gaze. "I told you that replacing Fugaku as Uchiha head was foolish. A stopgap measure at best." "Excuse me?" Itachi asked. He knew Danzo, knew him as a militaristic hardliner and knew his reputation as a world-class spymaster. But Itachi had been certain that only the Hokage, Shisui, and himself knew of the plot. "Don't fret, boy," Danzo said, seemingly sensing Itachi's concern. "It wasn't my spies who told me. Hiruzen asked for my opinion on the matter." "Regardless," the Hokage interrupted, "explain the intent behind your plan, Itachi." "Yes," the young Uchiha answered. "I believe part of the Uchiha clan's attitude stems from their isolation from the rest of the village. It has allowed them to view themselves as superior and to look down on others, because they have no contact with them. Allow integration and they will come to have a more positive view of the village, and the village of them." "You say that as if you don't consider yourself a member of your own family?" asked the Hokage. "That is irrelevant, Hiruzen," Danzo cut him off. "Making this full plan you've committed us to work is more important." "Itachi is the pivotal part of this plot," the third answered. "If he is in question, then the entire operation will fall apart." Reluctantly, Danzo acknowledged with a grunt. "Regardless, I think this unwise. The Lord Second gave them the military police as a sign of good faith. The Uchiha may become even more rebellious if we take that away from them." The Hokage gave a nod of approval. "I'm afraid so. It is a nice idea, but inadvisable in the current political climate. Perhaps it is best we shelve for a more stable time." "No," exclaimed Itachi. "Not if we let them think that they're still in control." The Hokage put down his pipe and let forth a cloud of tobacco smoke. "I'm listening." "We make it look like a compromise between us," Itachi said. "The police force is required to take on a certain number of non-Uchiha officers, but my father gets to pick them. In return, a small number of Uchiha members are required to serve in the regular forces, handpicked by me." Danzo took this into consideration and paced back and forth several times. "It is possible. A risk, to be sure, but less so than previous. If we let the Uchiha think that they have the upper hand in this arrangement, that might just pacify them enough to keep them from revolting." "Yes," the Hokage said, "but what of the results? How soon can we expect any?" I have no idea, Itachi said fearfully. The effects will take a while, Danzo answered. Possibly months, most likely years. I don't believe we have that much time. This is not the way, but you know what is. Just give me the word, Hiruzen. No, was the Hokage's firm response. I will not let violence rule this village. Itachi, can you keep your clan under control for that long? Itachi said, yes, seeming more assured than he actually was. The Hokage responded, good, getting to his feet. Make the arrangements as soon as possible. Itachi said, yes, sir, as the third departed the room. Itachi paced back and forth inside his father's office in the military police headquarters, preparing himself for what was to come. The door opened and Itachi came to a stop, pivoting to face the entrance, looking calm with his hands clasped behind his back. I'm afraid there has been a situation, Fugaku said as he walked in with 4 other Uchiha. Yashira remarked, what kind of situa? As he followed his boss inside and noticed Itachi waiting there. As the others walked in, Itachi declared, the village has approached us with a deal. We will place 5 Uchiha in the regular forces. In return, they will give us 5 shinobi from the regular forces for the police force. Are we going to accept this deal? We can't, right? Asked Yakumi, the last to walk into the room. We already have, Fugaku answered as he sat at his desk. You 4 are to be in the regular forces starting next week. I will pick replacements from a list of available Chunin and Jonin. Itachi sat on the corner of his father's desk. Shisui is already in the regular forces, he'll fill in the 5th slot. But, Yashira said, controlling the police force is major source of power, are we willing to give that up? The coup could very well hinge on it. Itachi stood up and got in Yashira's face, who flinched, remembering the beating he received the previous day. The Hokage wouldn't have approached us if they didn't already suspect something. The aggressive manner in which some of our number have carried out their duties has likely alerted them that something is amiss, Fugaku said. Itachi stepped away from Yashira and took a seat in a chair in the corner of the room. Besides, we control who transfers. We have the power here and can turn it to our advantage. I picked all of you because of my confidence in your abilities. I believe that we can do more damage to the village with all of you in the regular forces. Itachi looked at each of the 4. Yashira was going in order to break up the trio of him, Anabi, and Tekka, perhaps the worst agitators for the coup. Tekka's composed demeanor helped him restrain his companions, particularly Anabi, since Anabi was too erratic for this. Yashira was left. Akihiko, one of the clan's most esteemed shinobi, stood to his right. Itachi sought to give him a voice for peace because his opinions, which were never expressed, carried weight. Jun was the 3rd. She was picked because she was a relatively inexperienced kunoichi who had just received her chunin, which should make her more impressionable and less inclined to turn down her new allies. Either way, she had shown herself to be submissive and probably wouldn't pose any problems. Yakumi came last. To be honest, he was only picked to complete the group. You've all got your marching orders, Fugaku declared. Report to the Hokage Monday morning, and keep your eyes open. Every new transfer gave a quick salute and said, yes, sir, with the exception of Yashira, who appeared irritated and paused before reluctantly nodding silently. Itachi said, all right, that will be all for today, ending the brief meeting. The other shinobi departed the room, leaving father and son by themselves. Fugaku pulled out the list of transfer prospects from a drawer on his desk after the door was shut. Itachi questioned, who are bringing in? Before answering, Fugaku perused a few names on the list. I haven't decided. I'll hold some interviews, try to find some people who are personable and charismatic. Someone the others on the force will take a liking to. Good, Itachi answered. Fugaku said, interesting plan, son, as Itachi began to leave. Just be wary, things might become worse before they get better. Yeah, Itachi replied as he went back on his way. When lessons ended, Sasuke observed from the tops of the trees as Naruto hurried to his hidden training area. Sasuke had made the decision to attempt talking to Naruto again after chatting with his brother the day before. He intended to examine the blonde further for the time being before devising a fresh strategy. Sasuke noticed something out of the corner of his eye when they were almost halfway to Naruto's training site. As he came to a halt, he noticed 3 of their classmates entering the woodland. Naruto hadn't noticed them, but Sasuke could only speculate as to why they were there. Sasuke saw the 3 emerge from the forest and swiftly encircle Naruto. Sasuke went down to lower branches to listen in as he could only just make out their conversation. So boys, what do you say we start our little game, the group's leader said. Naruto inquired eagerly, almost desperately, "What game are we playing?" Compared to the irate and obstinate youngster Sasuke had usually seen, it was quite different. "It's a game we like to call Kick the Fox," the youngest youngster remarked. Like Sasuke, Naruto was clearly perplexed and asked, "What?" The biggest of the three boys responded by kicking Naruto in the stomach. As the bullies proceeded to beat him, the orphan bent over in agony. Naruto was fast on the ground while the other boys, giggling uncontrollably, carried on with their wicked game. After deciding he had had enough, Sasuke leapt from his perch and landed gently behind one of the bullies. He swept the boy's feet out from under him by kicking low at his standing leg. The other lads turned to watch the Uchiha with alarm as he hit the ground with a loud thud. One of them exclaimed, "Oh no, it's the Uchiha kid, run," as they started running. The one Sasuke had knocked down jumped to his feet and ran after his companions. "Wait for me, guys." Pushing himself off the ground, Naruto shouted at his escaping assailants, "Yeah, you better run." One of the guys responded, "Don't push your luck, fox boy," before they vanished from sight. "Uchiha won't stick around to protect you." Naruto shouted, "What does fox boy even mean?" but got no answer. Sasuke inquired, "You alright?" while Naruto carefully stood up. "I didn't need your help," Naruto angrily retorted, "I had that under control." Even though Sasuke was aware that was a blatant falsehood, he chose not to pursue the issue. "Whatever," Naruto remarked as he turned to leave, "I have the perfect way to get back at them." That sparked Sasuke's interest. "What?" Naruto paused and cast a questioning glance back at Sasuke. "Why?" Sasuke shrugged uncertainly, "Because I want to know you better." "What?" said Naruto, "like a friend sort of thing?" "Yeah," Sasuke surmised. For a brief period, Naruto's expression was contemplative, but then a cunning smile spread across his face. "Tell you what, meet me behind the academy after class tomorrow and I'll let you in on the biggest prank in the history of the village yet." "Sure," Sasuke said warily. Then, chuckling to himself, Naruto departed. Unlike the day before, Sasuke was a little late getting home, but not so late as to cause any problems. In his parents' bedroom, he discovered his mother reading. "Mother," Sasuke said, "is Itachi home?" Makoto looked up from her book. "Yes, he arrived a little before you did, actually. I believe he's in his room." Sasuke responded, "Thanks," and went to his brother's room. He peered inside and found Itachi studying a number of documents and notes, oblivious to Sasuke peering through the partially open door. "Brother?" Sasuke hesitantly inquired. Itachi looked up from his work and said, "Yes?" Sasuke fully opened the door and entered the space. "What's a fox boy?" "A what?" Itachi asked, sounding just as perplexed as Sasuke and Naruto. "Some bullies called Naruto that today," Sasuke remarked. Itachi's eyes grew wide with surprise and fear? Anger? Sasuke was unable to determine. But Itachi's attitude swiftly returned to stoicism. "Sounds like just another cruel nickname, Sasuke. Pay it no mind." "Okay," Sasuke replied, understanding that the phrase had more meaning than Itachi was expressing. After the day's classes at the academy ended, an anxious Sasuke crept to the back of the building. What kind of practical joke was Naruto planning? It was beyond Sasuke's comprehension. He was taken aback by the absence of, well, nothing, when he got to the meeting spot. Naruto was leaning against a wall and stood by himself. With trepidation, Sasuke questioned, "So, what are we doing?" Naruto gave a cunning smile. Then he began to run, saying, "Follow me." Sasuke cried, "Hey, wait for me," as he pursued the Joker. Instead of waiting for Sasuke, Naruto continued to run in the direction of a sizable apartment building close to the academy. Naruto took the roofs as they approached, and Sasuke did the same. The Uchiha arrived soon after the Uzumaki, who had reached the top of the apartments by the time he stopped sprinting. 6 basic catapults equipped with buckets of various colored paints were arranged along the building's side. Sasuke could tell by looking at them that, in the event that the trigger wire was severed, they were made to drop their payloads straight into the adjacent alleyway. Sasuke questioned, "What are we going to do with this?" Naruto grinned broadly and continued, "I'm going to draw those bastard bullies from yesterday into the alley," scarcely holding back his enthusiastic laughter. Naruto produced a knife and gave it to Sasuke, who grasped it by the handle. "Then you're going to cut those strings and the paint will fall all over them," Naruto said. The prankster began giggling uncontrollably at this moment because he was unable to contain his joy. Uncertain of what to think, Sasuke gazed at Naruto. His gaze then shifted to the paint-filled catapults. Where did you get all of that stuff? Naruto interrupted his chuckle with a, oh, I stole it. What? Shouted Sasuke in shock. Naruto began to descend to street level before he received a response. Just be ready. With a sigh, Sasuke followed instructions. Kneeling near the first catapult on the roof's corner. After a few moments of waiting, he finally spotted Naruto sprinting across the streets. The three bullies trailed following him. One of the bullies yelled, "Get back here," and Sasuke heard Naruto's joyful laughter. Naruto turned down the alleyway ahead of the bullies because he was well ahead of their target. The blonde had already crossed over and was waiting for his victims when they got there. One of the three asked, "Just going to stand there, huh? Should have just kept on running." The first bucket of paint was discharged by Sasuke, and its contents spilled onto the alleyway below. As the paint spilled on and around them, one of the boys exclaimed, "What the hell was that?" Another shouted, "Just keep going," and they did precisely that. Before long, Sasuke had dumped the second, third, and fourth buckets, each of which the Uchiha found additional amusement in. The boys stopped in front of Sasuke's fifth catapult because they had had enough of the paint falling from the sky. The bullies made the sensible decision to remain where they were. Not wanting it to end, Sasuke moved the sixth and last catapult so that the bucket would land on one of the bullies' heads when he launched it. Down in the alleyway, Naruto was giggling merrily. Sasuke hesitated for a second before joining in. "Naruto." Iruka's voice echoed. In an attempt to avoid being seen, Sasuke instantly became silent and covered his lips with his hands. He crept to the roof's edge and observed Naruto and Iruka arguing and screaming at one another. "How many times are you going to do something like this, Naruto?" Iruka shouted. Naruto said, "I don't know, haven't decided," in response. The teacher said, "Are you going to come with me quietly this time?" Naruto gave a shrug. "Sure, but there's one thing first." Sasuke was perplexed when Naruto passed Iruka and made contact with the apartment building's wall. Sasuke noticed a string that had been concealed at the roof's edge suddenly losing its tension. He trailed it back to the building's rooftop entrance, where he could just make out a catapult's throwing arm. He saw a bucket of orange paint flying at him, and his eyes grew wide. Sasuke was struck by the paint as the empty bucket sailed past him and fell into the alleyway, but it was too late for him to move. Sasuke yelled at Naruto from the rooftop, furious. "Hey, idiot! We were supposed to prank those bullies, not me." The alley resonated with Naruto's laughter. "Yeah, but then I thought how funny it would be if I got you too." After a brief period of simmering rage, Sasuke simply started laughing. The sound of the Uchiha's and Uzumaki's laughter blended together as he rolled around in the orange paint puddle surrounding him, becoming even more covered in the substance. In one of the academy's classrooms, Itachi walked back and forth while his younger brother, a complete mess covered in orange paint from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, sat in one of the front row seats. Their mother accompanied them, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. It was shocking enough that Sasuke's teacher had called them to the academy, but they had not anticipated this at all. Makoto gradually recovered from her amazement and murmured, How did this happen?" Sasuke scratched the back of his neck and gave them an uncomfortable smile. "It's, a long story. He and Naruto pulled a prank on a group of their classmates after school today," Iruka replied as she leaned against the glass. Iruka barely contained his laughter before clearing his throat and saying, "Should have seen them, covered in more paint than Sasuke here, black, red, blue, and a few other colors. One of them had bruises all over his head from where a bucket landed on him. Their parents wanted to have Naruto kicked out of the program, but that isn't happening. Even if I were inclined to indulge them, Lord Hokage wouldn't allow it." Itachi glanced at his younger brother before turning to face Naruto, who was seated a few seats away and appeared to be sleeping. If Sasuke was pulling the prank, Makoto inquired, "Why is he covered in paint too?" "Oh, that? Naruto is more clever than people give him credit for. He set up a trap for Sasuke too," Iruka remarked with a tinge of pride. Makoto looked up at the instructor. "What about Sasuke? Are the parents of those other children pressing charges?" "Oh, don't worry," Iruka said, waving his hand dismissively. "They weren't at all concerned about him." Makoto responded, "Very well," and turned back to his younger son. "You got lucky this time, but you're going to get some discipline when we get home." Itachi interrupted, saying, "Wait, mother. I want to talk to Sasuke alone. Naruto too." Makoto sighed and said, "Okay," before leaving the room. Itachi glanced at Iruka behind him. The Chunin responded, "Oh, all right," as he left. Itachi said, "Naruto, could you come over here?" After appearing to have been asleep the entire time, the child opened his eyes and moved to sit next Sasuke. Itachi questioned, "How did this happen? I want the whole story." Naruto and Sasuke told the story of how they had encountered the bullies the day before and how Sasuke had consented to assist the practical joker. Naruto also described how he had acquired the supplies for his plot and how he had devised the scheme to double-cross the Uchiha. Itachi shook his head and grinned. "Well, Sasuke, it seems you've got yourself a friend." The two boys exchanged glances. "Are we friends?" Sasuke asked. Naruto remained quiet for a moment. "Sure, I guess," he finally said with a shrug. At that, they both grinned and burst out laughing, then gave each other a fist bump to signify their newfound friendship. Itachi had discovered his younger brother splattered in orange paint in an academy classroom a few days prior. Sasuke not only defied their parents' orders to stay away from Naruto, but he also did so in a blatant and public manner. The day after, a Saturday, so there were no classes, Sasuke came home late in the afternoon, talking about his training session with his new best friend. Today was Monday and again Sasuke had come home excited with the stories of the antics he and Naruto were getting up to. Regardless of their parents' exasperation over the sudden change of affairs, Itachi was silently glad that Sasuke had found a friend. But he was thinking about other things as well. The transfers took place today, and as far as Itachi was concerned, no news was good. Lord Itachi. Lord Itachi. Itachi became acutely aware of the shouting coming from outside and hurried to the front of the house. A youthful Uchiha exclaimed, "Lord Itachi," as the clan chief unlocked the door. "What is it?" Itachi asked. "Sir, it's Yashara," the messenger said. "He's under arrest." "For what?" Itachi exclaimed, surprised. "Sir," the messenger replied, short of breath, "he murdered one of his new squadmates." Itachi shouted, "Murder!" and grabbed the messenger, an Uchiha lad who had probably just turned genin, by the collar, drawing him in. "Why yes, sir," was the boy's hurried reply. "How?" exclaimed the clad head. Fugaku arrived on the scene, placing a hand on Itachi's arm. The younger Uchiha calmed himself, releasing his grip on the messenger. "How did this happen?" Itachi asked more calmly. "Sir, I don't know the specifics," the boy answered, massaging his neck. "All I know is that he stabbed his squad mate in the chest repeatedly. The man was dead when the police arrived on the scene." "Is Yashara at headquarters?" Fugaku interjected. The messenger nodded nervously. "Yes, along with the Hokage and a squad of Anbu." "We'll go immediately," Fugaku said. Itachi gave a nod of approval. Itachi marched into the military police headquarters, filled with a sense of purpose. When he burst through the doors, everyone within earshot turned to look at the clan head come through, his predecessor on heels. They promptly went back to their job, making a conscientious effort to avoid getting in the way. Itachi marched straight into the on-duty clerk, a Uchiha genin who had given up on making chunin years ago, so this did little to help him. Itachi demanded, "Where is he?" The clerk stumbled back, "Who, my lord?" "The Hokage," Fugaku replied. "We need to talk to him about Yashara." "Oh, yes." The clerk answered, turning gratefully to the calmer, older Uchiha. "He's in your office, sir." Itachi looked in the direction of said office, seeing a pair of Anbu standing at attention at the door. "Thank you," Fugaku said amiably as Itachi marched off. "Itachi, calm down," Fugaku said, catching up to his son, who did not acknowledge his existence as he opened the door to Fugaku's office and stepped in. Fugaku followed him in and closed the door as Itachi relaxed his posture and took a deep breath. "It's all right, father," Itachi replied, "I'm okay." "I hope so," the Hokage said, standing in front of Fugaku's desk, casually smoking his pipe. "Lord Hokage," Fugaku replied, "could you please tell us what is going on?" "Certainly," the village chief said, "your man Yashara just committed murder on his first day on the job. The man himself is being held in the cells while his remaining teammate, man by the name of Ichiro, is giving his official testimony in the interrogation chambers." "No doubt at least some of my men will want to cover this up," Fugaku replied. "You said this was public. How much so?" "Extremely," Sarutobi replied. They were heading towards the main gates to go out on their first assignment. At least half a dozen people saw Yoshiro drawing his kunai and stab his teammate, Urata, in the chest multiple times, in what most would describe as a crime of passion. The Hokage pulled a long pipe. "I should warn you, Yashara must pay for this. Danzo will be calling for a public execution, and as much I'd hate for it come to that, I cannot allow your clansmen to believe that they can act without consequence. Especially for such a blatantly public murder. Understood, Itachi replied. But sir, I would like to make a full appraisal of the situation before we discuss how to deal with it. May we take time to question those involved before we decide Yoshiro's punishment? Very well, the Hokage answered. The Hokage then quietly left the chamber and strolled out of the building with his Anbu guards, saying, I will return to my office. Meet me there once you have finished here. Let's go, Fugaku said as he and Itachi left his office, closing the door behind them. The two Uchiha leaders moved to the headquarters' lower floors. There were two hallways at the foot of the stairs, which could be accessed via two double doors across from one another. Itachi turned to face the interrogation rooms. We should question the witness first, he remarked. HMPH, Fugaku said with a little smile. Itachi opened the doors and asked, What? Nothing, Fugaku said, just thinking about how it would have been if you joined the police instead of the Anbu. Ah, Itachi answered. In the hallway there were doors leading to several interrogation chambers, with a guard standing outside of one of them, presumably the one that was in use. Sir, the Uchiha police force member said as he stood at attention. Is the witness inside? Fugaku asked. The guard replied, Yes sir, then leaned in to whisper. Sir, we're not going to let them just take Yashira, right? It's not that simple, we can't afford to be so brazen, Itachi answered for his father. After a moment's pause he added in a hushed voice, Whatever happens, you can be sure that Yashira has set our plans back. The young Uchiha was obviously thinking about what Itachi had said as he cast his gaze to the ground. He nervously gripped the door handle and nodded stiffly. He said, An Anbu escort is with the witness, and then he started to open the door. Fugaku said, Understood, as the massive door thudded open. Before the door was shut behind them, he and Itachi entered. Within was a relatively large and spacious chamber, dark save for a single overhead lamp hanging in the center of the room. The only piece of furniture in the room, a plain wooden chair, was situated beneath this lamp. In said chair was a somewhat portly leaf shinobi, a chunin judging from the uniform, which had blood spattered all over it, obviously not his own. An Anbu guard stood in the dark far corner of the room, visible only thanks to the pale light reflecting off his white animal mask, the rest of his black and gray outfit doing well to conceal him in the dark. Itachi gave the guard a barely perceptible nod of acknowledgement, which was reciprocated. They were allies even if it was hard to identify the person hiding behind the mask. As the two Uchiha entered the room, the chunin glanced up at them. Wah, I already gave my testimony. Can I go already? The man looked back and forth between Itachi, Fugaku, and his Anbu escort nervously. Fugaku responded, I know, and you'll be free to go soon, as he knelt before the witness. We just want to hear your story for ourselves. Ain't much to hear, Hachiro answered. There was tension between us and Yoshiro from the get-go, especially between him and Arata. Yoshiro acted like his presence was a gift, like we should be grateful that Uchiha was on the same team as us, even though he didn't seem happy with the transfer. As his father knelt beside the witness, Itachi stood back, his face hidden by shadows, and questioned, Did he actually say that? No, Hachiro hesitantly replied. But he was beating around the bush quite a lot. After a while Arata got so fed up with it and confronted him asked if the Uchiha were so great they would have done something against the Nine Tails. The chunin looked back and forth between Itachi and Fugaku before awkwardly coughing. Ack. Not that I share that view, or anything. Itachi disregarded that. Is that when Yoshiro attacked Arata? In a fit of rage? Yes, the witness replied. Though, it was less like Yoshiro got angry at us so much as he had been angry before he even met us and we just sent him over the edge. Fugaku nodded and got to his feet. Thank you, I believe that's enough, you may go now. Fugaku got up and trailed Itachi out of the room as he turned back to the door. Both of them strolled silently back down the hall, past the stairs, and reached the detention block. Without bothering to inquire as to which cell Yoshiro was being detained in, Fugaku simply nodded to the on-duty guard as they went past. With the exception of the high-security cells at the end of the detention block designed to house elite shinobi, which Yoshiro was not, the cells were fairly typical of those seen in jails and prisons around the world. The man was discovered sitting on the bed in the third cell on the right, complaining to himself. He glanced up at Itachi and Fugaku as they approached his cage, but he remained silent. Hello, Yoshiro, Fugaku began, trying to strike up a discussion. The killer remained silent. Yoshiro, Itachi stated sharply, you know what you've done will hurt the clan. Shut up, Itachi, Yoshiro replied in an unexpectedly composed manner. You of all people have no right to tell me about the clan. You, who've never held our interest at heart. Itachi shot back, you think you've done anything good here, Yoshiro? Don't use me to distract from the fact that you fucked up. Yoshiro grasped the prison bars and shouted back, go to hell, Itachi, in response. Be quiet, Fugaku firmly intervened. Yoshiro, you've put us in a bad position here. We can't let you go unpunished, we can't let the village get suspicious. We can't attack them right now and save you either, that would suicide. After calming down, Yoshiro moved away from the cell door and took a seat on the bed. Go ahead, then. Let me get executed. We'll see what comes of it. Cowards will get their due fate. Very well, Itachi replied. What? Cried Fugaku. Itachi, don't you think you should consider this a bit more carefully? Itachi angrily gestured to the prisoner and stated, if he is ready to die for his cause, then let him die. What's up Sasuke? Standing above Naruto, Sasuke glanced up at him and gave him a curious glance. 5 days after the Uchiha learned of Yoshiro's crime, it was Friday, the conclusion of the week, the start of the weekend, and the day the man was scheduled to be put to death. Nothing, the youthful Uchiha said. Come on, Naruto yelled, irritated. You asked if we could hang out after class and then you don't say or do anything. Looking out over the hamlet from their rooftop perch, Sasuke turned his back on his new companion. Something's gone wrong. Naruto asked, what's wrong? I don't know, Sasuke replied. Something in my clan. Everyone is angry about something, but they won't tell me about it. Now, one of our shinobi did something bad, terrible. He killed somebody and now he's getting punished. Naruto said, okay, and took a seat beside Sasuke. That just seems to have made everyone angrier, the young Uchiha went on. I don't like being there, at home. Naruto listened to Sasuke and understood what he was saying, but he couldn't comprehend how someone could ever desire to be apart from their family. Itachi was perched on a platform with a view of one of the main squares in Leaf Village. Alongside him were the Hokage, the chiefs of several of the most significant clans in the hamlet, and other village officials. Yoshiro was restrained with a noose around his neck on a different platform below. The murder had been extremely public and terrible. Normally, the hamlet would not have made the execution so public. In exchange, it demanded a public demonstration of justice. Itachi observed with indifference. Both citizens and shinobi from the village had gathered. Itachi was aware that some of them had seen Yoshiro's crime. They were here now to see him pay for it. Itachi observed that members of the Uchiha clan were also among them. Itachi became alert. After concluding his remarks, the Hokage went back to his seat. The time had arrived. Ibiki Morino entered the platform where Yoshiro was waiting to be punished, accompanied by 2 Anbu members. The torture master took a moment to survey the gathering, and Itachi realized that the psychologist was probably very accurately assessing the crowd's emotions while waiting for the ideal opportunity. After that, he would issue the order at the ideal moment to achieve the intended outcome. When the time came, Ibiki gave a nod to an Anbu member, who then pulled a lever to lower the floors beneath Yoshiro's feet. He fell, and the rope and gravity combined to snap his neck and kill him. The pride of the Uchiha prevented him from speaking or yelling. Itachi was not present when Yoshiro fell. He continued to watch the throng. He noticed Yoshiro's buddies and accomplices, Tekka and Anabi, among them. When Tekka saw his friend being put to death, his expression remained neutral. Anabi, however, was clearly furious as he observed. His eyes briefly locked with Itachi's, and the young clan head saw a great deal of rage simmering behind a pair of Sharingan, all aimed at him. Itachi is now the clan head, with his parents on either side of him, sitting where his father had during the previous clan meeting. All of the clan's adult members had gathered in front of him, anxiously observing. I'm sure we all know what the first topic of discussion is going to be, Itachi said. Hell yeah, we do, exclaimed Ianabi. Itachi let out a sigh. Yes, it is regrettable that Yashira had to die. With all due respect, Tekka said, did he have to? Yes, Itachi replied. There is no way we could succeed in a coup attempt right now, Fugaku said. We had no choice but to let Yashira be punished for his crimes. The meeting was silent. Even though it had been about a week since the fateful day of Yashira's execution, it was evident that everyone was still working through their feelings. Well, Tayaki said, breaking the silence. The store owner folded his arms across his chest and said, it sounded to me like Yashira got what was coming to him. One of the shinobi Itachi had transferred to the regular forces, Akihiko, inquired, what makes you say that? The man rarely spoke, so everyone was taken aback when he did. Tayaki's throat was cleaned. The man's wife pulled on his arm, her expression suggesting that she would have preferred it if he had remained silent. From what I heard, Yashira up and attacked his own squadmate in public. That sounds like exactly the sort of thing we should punish people for. He recoiled from her contact. He was only protecting the honor of the clan, exclaimed Inabi. More than a peddler like you has ever done. The owner of the senbei business got up and looked around the room. He looked at Itachi as if to see if the clan head would interrupt. I know many of you won't want to hear this, but many of you ninja are too wrapped up in yourselves. Itachi motioned for him to continue. I understand that being a shinobi is central to our traditions, he said. But, and I hope I'm speaking for everyone here who isn't a ninja, it sometimes seems like you lot can't see past the edge of our compound. I think the unfortunate incident with Yashira helped me realize that. The room fell silent in shock. Itachi was shocked to learn that Tayaki, a Uchiha who had never awakened the Sharingan, was more adept at expressing his personal problems with the clan than he was. Itachi looked around the room and noticed that while all of the shinobi appeared astonished, those who had never trained or had abandoned the ninja lifestyle at a young age were beginning to nod in agreement with what Tayaki had said. Even though there was still a tiny portion of the clan, Itachi wanted to take advantage of the occasion. I see, Itachi replied. Thank you for your perspective, Tayaki. Before returning to his seat, the business owner bowed his head to Itachi. Itachi asked, would anyone like to respond to that? Tekka got to her feet. After Tekka said, while I respect your opinion, Tayaki, and anyone who shares it, I do have one problem. You yourself said that being a shinobi is central to our traditions. I would go a step further and say that one cannot fully understand what it means to be Uchiha if they are not also a shinobi. A low murmur went through the room. The non-ninja members of the clan appeared dissatisfied, with Tayaki in particular sporting a deep frown. The majority of the clan, the shinobi, appeared less assured. Itachi said, perhaps, over the din in the room. I would like to get another perspective, however. I recently arranged for 5 members of our clan to join the regular forces. We know what Yashira's reaction to this was, but I'm curious about the others. Shisui, you've been with the regulars since you graduated from the academy. What is your opinion? In his corner of the room, Shisui got to his feet. Well, I'm afraid that I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Tayaki. In my experience, the difference between us and everyone else isn't all that great. If we all just gave it a chance, we could all get along. The remarks of one of the Uchiha's most gifted young members obviously had an effect as some of the other shinobi in the clan started exchanging looks. Itachi was aware that he had made a safe decision, but it was now time to take a chance. Would any of the other 3 like to add anything? Jun got to her feet, her arms clasped tightly to her chest, a sign of anxiety. Well, I'm not sure what to think. But, I know that my new squadmates have been nothing but good to me, even after they heard about Yashira. In fact, they seemed more concerned with how I was taking it more than anything else. Enough of this, Tekka said. Do none of you remember how the village has mistreated us since the Nine Tails attack? The suspicion? The unspoken anger? How they've routinely passed over our best and brightest for high-ranking positions again and again? I want to see more, said Akihiko. Everyone paused to hear his infrequent remarks. I don't know if I agree with Shisui or Tayaki, but my experience with the regular forces is similar to Jun's. I would like to spend more time with them and see how it goes. Are we really talking about this? Exclaimed Inabi. We should be discussing how will we get back at the village leaders for killing Yashira. That does not seem to be the consensus here, Fugaku remarked. It seems that we should shelve our coup plans for the moment and re-examine our relationship with the village. You were as invested in the coup as anybody, Lord Fugaku. Inabi shouted. What change? Like many of us here, recent events have caused me to rethink things, the former clan head retorted. Tekka put a hand on Inabi's shoulder and stopped him before he could jump across the meeting room and attack the police chief. Tekka quietly stated, we do not agree with the direction this is going, while keeping his eyes closed. He opened them and glared at Itachi with Sharingan. Tekka's Sharingan started to change, taking on a new form. We will not stand by and let traitors in our midst lead our clan astray. With these fresh eyes staring down at him, Itachi could feel himself starting to perspire. However, Tekka's eyes went back to their typical black hue after he blinked. The rest of the clan watched in silence as Tekka and Inabi got up and left the meeting room. Makoto responded, all right, and got to his feet. Everyone in the room turned to Itachi, who stated, I think we've all said everything that's to be said at this point. This meeting's over. He agreed with his mother by nodding. The remaining members of the tribe gradually started to depart the conference room. Itachi, his parents, and Shisui were the only ones left in the end. Itachi gave Shisui a nod, and Shisui nodded back before heading off. When they were by themselves, Itachi asked his parents, "You saw his eyes, didn't you?" "Yes," Fugaku replied. "I'm surprised that he was able to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Not even I ever managed it." "I hope those eyes do not spell trouble for us," Makoto said. Sitting on the academy's roof, Sasuke observed people moving about below. Many of the students were leaving for home after classes had just concluded. Sasuke was thinking about accompanying Naruto, who had already left for his training location. At the very least, it would keep him away from home, which had turned into a gloomy place to be ever since one of his family was put to death for murder. Even Tayaki, the cheerful store owner who would offer Sasuke a complimentary senbei on his way to class, was acting as though a heavy burden hung on his shoulders. The atmosphere in the Uchiha compound had altered. Sasuke decided that a diversion would be beneficial and got up to accompany his friend. As Sasuke turned to face the woodland, he was startled to see a trio that he was becoming more and more familiar with walking into the trees in front of him. He and Naruto had played a practical joke on the bullies, who were clearly seeking revenge. Sasuke clenched his jaw, determined to prevent them from harming Naruto once more. Sasuke heard the three schoolboys talking below as he followed them, leaping from tree branch to tree branch. "Hey," one of the boys said, "do you really think we'll find the fox boy out here again?" Sasuke was still perplexed by that term. "I told you guys," said a second person. "I've seen him head out into the woods almost every day. I don't know what he's doing, but I guess since he doesn't have a family he's got nowhere else to go." "Yeah," said the third. The three of them chuckled at the question, "Do you think he lives out here?" Sasuke jumped to the ground and fell into pace behind the bullies after deciding he had heard enough. He said, "Where are you guys going?" All three of them turned to face Sasuke. "Oh, great, Uchiha's back," one of them exclaimed. Another said, "What? You protecting the fox boy now?" "Hey guys, I bet he's in love with the fox boy," said the third. He protruded his tongue at the youthful Uchiha. Sasuke scowled at the remark. "Why do you keep calling Naruto that?" The person nearest to Sasuke exclaimed, "Like we're telling you," and retracted his punch. "Come on guys, he took us by surprise before. We can take him." With their fists raised, the schoolyard bullies all surged at Sasuke. They could have intimidated a typical child, but Sasuke Uchiha, a budding prodigy, didn't find them terrifying. After coolly avoiding the first child, he struck the second with a counter and knocked him down. Then, Sasuke sidestepped the third's ferocious blow, kicking the bully's legs from under him and causing the child to stumble into the first assailant. Sasuke said, now, placing his foot on the back of the second child's prone body, "Tell where you got that nickname from." The bully shouted, "I don't know, man," from beneath Sasuke's foot. "I just heard my parents calling him a fox." "Your parents?" Sasuke inquired, his confusion growing. Another bully said, "Hey, maybe it's got something to do with the whisker marks on his face," getting up off the ground. "I guess they kind of look like a fox's." The third child said, "You think so? I always thought they looked more like a cat's whiskers than a fox's." For a moment, everyone looked at the boy, not sure how to interpret his remark. Finally, one of the other bullies asked, "What's the difference?" Sasuke let out a sigh. "Just go," he commanded, taking his foot off the child's back. He moved away from the three of them and headed for Naruto's training location. The person Sasuke had trodden on started shrieking, "You think you can," before his fellows seized him and began dragging him away. Having had enough for the day, the three made their way back to the academy. Sasuke managed to reach Naruto's small training area. Seeing the Uzumaki honing his shuriken throwing skill did not surprise him. As he entered, Sasuke said, "I wish you would throw that thing away," gesturing to the effigy of himself that was still one of Naruto's practice targets. Glancing over his shoulder at Sasuke, Naruto said, "What? Oh, guess it slipped my mind, sorry." "Whatever," Sasuke answered. He observed Naruto returning to his training. "Hey," he began. "You want me to help you?" Naruto stopped and gave this some thought. "Nah. No offense, Sasuke, we may be friends now but you're still my rival. You're the best in the class, so I have to be better than you if I want to become Hokage." "Okay," Sasuke murmured as he attempted to comprehend Naruto's reply. His thoughts were diverted as he sensed a presence close by. He looked about, searching for it. A figure emerged from behind a nearby tree, startling him. Iruka remarked, "Oh, Sasuke," as he appeared. "I'm surprised to see you here." Naruto turned to face the teacher after tossing another shuriken. Hey, Iruka-sensei. I'm not in trouble, am I? No, no, Iruka answered. The teacher stopped to take something from his pocket and said, in fact, you've been abnormally well behaved since your last incident and, well. He held out a few coupons for Naruto to examine and said, I thought that I might treat to some of that ramen you really like. Naruto said, oh, yes, as his shuriken dropped to the floor, forgotten. As his companion joyfully sprang up and down, Sasuke observed him. Is this ramen really that good? You bet, Naruto answered. Come with us, please. I'm not sure, Sasuke answered. He glanced up at Iruka. What? Asked the instructor. He opened his wallet and started counting his money, saying, wait a minute. You know what, Iruka said at last. Sure. Yes. Exclaimed Naruto. But, Iruka cut in. You're going to have limit the amount you eat. I can't afford to pay for both of you if you eat 6 whole bowls again. Ah, Naruto said, lowering his arms to his sides as his previous zeal faded. Okay. Sasuke laughed at what he saw. Iruka motioned for his 2 students to follow him as he started to leave. Come on, he urged. Sasuke and Naruto trailed behind their instructor. But even after Iruka had come clean, the Uchiha were unable to get rid of the sense that they were being watched. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on up in fear. Standing outside a food stand close to the academy, Sasuke questioned, is this it? Yep, Naruto answered, strolling into the stall with a massive grin on his face. Iruka put a reassuring hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Don't worry, I promise it's good. Okay. Sasuke answered. Stepping under the short curtains protecting the inside of the stall from the elements, Sasuke sat on a stool next to Naruto. Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen. The chief called out over the counter, his back turned as he tended to the stove. Oh, a new customer, he added, looking over his shoulder. Seems to be friends with Naruto. Good to see. This you're doing, Iruka? No, actually, the teacher answered, taking a seat on the other side of Naruto. I admit I don't have a clear idea as to how this happened. Well, it's good to see regardless, the chief said, returning to his work. Hey, old man Tucci, Naruto said, nearly leaping from his seat. Can I get an order of the miso? Coming right up, the chief responded. Another voice said, is that Iruka and Naruto? Sasuke turned to see a young adolescent girl wearing an apron as she entered from the rear. Sure is, Ayame, and that's not all, Tucci replied. Ayame said, oh, aren't you a cutie, and reached across the counter to pinch Sasuke's cheek. Are you Naruto's friend? Sasuke didn't know how to react to this, so he simply nodded slowly. Great, said Ayame as she tousled Sasuke's hair. You better take care of him now. Naruto may like to act tough but he needs people to look after him. Sure, Sasuke was able to say. Naruto yelled, hey, in response to Ayame's insinuations. Tucci cut them off by placing a bowl in front of Naruto. Here you go, 1 miso ramen, on the house. Celebration for a new friend. Awesome, said Naruto. He said, thank you, before disassembling a pair of chopsticks and beginning to eat. Father, Ayame exclaimed, you can't just give him free food like that. Tucci answered, what can I say? I've got a soft spot for the kid. Sasuke watched Naruto eating, noticing the joy obvious on his friend's face. Can I have one of those too, please? Sure thing, kid, Tucci replied. Another bowl of miso ramen was quickly ordered and set in front of Sasuke on the counter. The Uchiha started eating while Tucci and Ayame took Iruka's order and coupons. To Sasuke's surprise, the ramen was good. Excellent, excellent. Before he knew it he was scarfing it down almost as fast. Naruto and thoughts of the dour mood back in the Uchiha compound were pushed to the back of his mind. Naruto, finished with his bowl, watched Sasuke with a grin. Isn't it the best thing you ever tasted? Sasuke paused from eating. It's good, but I don't know about that. Ah, come on, Naruto replied. Just admit it. Tell you what, Sasuke uttered. There's a great senbei shop near where I live. I'll take you there and you'll have the best food you've ever had. Deal, was Naruto's reply. Oh, sounds like we've got some competition, Ayame, Tucci replied. We might have to up our game, said the younger chief. She went on, oh, hello, addressing someone behind Sasuke. She began, welcome to Ichi, but abruptly stopped. Tucci and Ayame were staring vacantly into space when Sasuke looked up from his bowl. Tucci quickly grabbed a kitchen knife from behind the counter, stabbed Iruka in the hand, and pinned it to the countertop before Sasuke could come up with an explanation. Naruto cried out, "Iruka-sensei!" Just as a hand from outside the stall grabbed Iruka by the hair and slammed his head into the bar. With his hand still locked to the counter, the teacher was knocked unconscious and slumped off his stool. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Naruto screamed, whirling in his chair. But before he could say another word, he passed out and collapsed into two waiting arms. When Sasuke finally turned, he saw two shrouded people, their faces hidden by the hoods covering their heads. Sasuke was startled to find two Sharingan gleaming in the darkness when one of them turned to face him. After giving the little Uchiha a brief glance, those crimson eyes pushed the child to the ground. Sasuke forced himself to stand as the two fled. When he saw that they were gone, he stopped trying to pursue them after running outdoors. The young Uchiha looked up, trying to decide what to do next, and saw the Hokage's office looming a short distance away. Sasuke rushed as fast as he could in its direction. "Itachi!" Makoto yelled. His mother was standing in the outdoor garden when the young clan head emerged from his room, where he had been going over some notes from the previous conference. Itachi said, "Yes?" The matriarch of the Uchiha family inquired, "Have you seen your brother? It's starting to get late." "I haven't," Itachi answered. "He's probably training with Naruto. I'll go see if I can find him." "Thank you," Makoto replied. Itachi made his way to the foyer, put on his sandals, and went outdoors. When he sensed a presence close by, he paused. "Yes?" Itachi inquired as he noticed an Anbu member standing in the shadows, out of sight of anyone who could be walking down the street. "The Hokage requests your presence immediately," the shinobi in the mask stated. "It's an emergency." Itachi asked, his stomach dropping in fear, "What's happening?" "I'm not at liberty to say," the Anbu member retorted. "Just get to the Hokage's office as quickly as you can." The sound of footsteps from within the house caused both shinobi to turn. Makoto said, "Itachi, have you left yet?" "What's going on?" she said after noticing the masked Anbu ninja. "Sorry, mother, you'll have to find Sasuke without me," Itachi replied. "Mrs. Uchiha, you should come to the Hokage's office too," the Anbu member said. "Your son is waiting for you there." Makoto asked, glancing at Itachi. "Sasuke is?" They both nodded and Makoto quickly put on sandals before the pair took to the rooftops, moving as fast as they could. Itachi opened the door to the Hokage's office, seeing Sasuke sitting on top of the Hokage's desk. While Sasuke gazed at the ground, the third Hokage stood by the boy and gave him a gentle back rub. Makoto shouted, "Sasuke," as she ran past Itachi and gave her youngest son a hug. Itachi entered the room and said, "What happened?" The Hokage took his pipe out of his mouth and placed it on his desk. "Young Sasuke here was witness to an attack at a food stall not far from here." Makoto gave a gasp. "Sasuke, are you okay? Were you hurt?" "I'm fine, mother," the tiny child replied. "The assailants left 3 people in the hospital," the Hokage went on. "2 civilians who have been placed under a very powerful genjutsu that's left them both of them in comas, and an instructor from the academy who has a stab wound through his hand and took a nasty blow to the head." He breathed in and continued. "They also kidnapped another child, Naruto Uzumaki." Makoto said, "Oh no," while cradling Sasuke. "What I'm about to say may shock you," the Hokage said. Itachi responded with a nod. The Hokage inhaled deeply and went on. "According to Sasuke here, at least one of the attackers had Sharingan." Itachi's eyes grew wide. "Mother, take Sasuke home. I need to discuss this with Lord Hokage, alone." Makoto paused, his gaze darting between the village chief and the clan head. At last, she said, "Okay," and led her younger son out the door while holding his hand. "Wait," Sasuke muttered as he paused beside Itachi. "Brother, promise me you'll save Naruto." Itachi bent down to meet his younger sibling's face. "I promise you, I'll make sure Naruto's safe." With a determined expression, Sasuke nodded and proceeded with Makoto. The Hokage said, "I don't need to tell you that this is very bad," after the mother and kid had left the room. "We cannot let the 9 tails devastate this village once more. Furthermore, I'm not sure that at my age I would be able to stop the beast as the 4th Hokage did." Itachi winced, realizing how serious the situation was. "Tekka and Inabi. I'm sure it's them, they've been increasingly agitated since Yashira's execution. But why are they targeting Naruto? They must believe that they can do as your ancestor Madara once did and use their Sharingan to take control of the 9-tailed fox," Hokage stated. "That can't be right," Itachi said. "Madara is the greatest shinobi our clan ever produced. Tekka and Inabi aren't at my father's level, let alone Madara's. They can't possibly believe they're capable of controlling the Nine Tails, can they? From his desk, the Hokage took out his smoking pipe. Perhaps your attempts to de-escalate the coup plans have made them desperate, enough so that have chosen an extreme course of action they would have never considered normally. My apologies, Itachi bowed his head. The Hokage questioned, what are you apologizing for? Itachi clarified, this situation is happening because of my miscalculations. Perhaps if I had chosen a different route we could have avoided this mess. Perhaps, the Hokage answered. But this is not the moment to question that. Instead, we must focus on what we should do going forward. I will put together a team of Jonin to pursue them. The Hokage started to leave the room, but when Itachi abruptly knelt in front of him, he halted. My lord, send me, said the head of the Uchiha clan. I'll go after them straight away. The Hokage answered, we do not even know where they have gone. We need an entire team of trackers, not just one man. I'm willing to let you join the squad, but we must not be too hasty. Please, this is my fault, allow me to fix it, Itachi answered. They're from my clan, allow me to deal with them, not as a member of the Anbu, or even a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, but as the leader of the Uchiha. With a sigh, the Hokage took a drag from his pipe and exhaled. Very well. You may pursue them if you wish. However, be aware that I will be sending out a team in short order. If they catch up before you do, or if you happen to run into them, I expect you to give them your full cooperation, as a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf would. Absolutely, my lord, Itachi answered. I will not let you down. Itachi slammed his fist on his closest friend's front door and exclaimed, Shisui. His sword was attached to his back, and he was dressed in Anbu armor. As the door opened, Shisui emerged, wiping sleep from his eyes. What are you yelling about at this time of night? It's Tekka and Anabi, Itachi answered. They've kidnapped Naruto Uzumaki, he whispered. The Hokage believes they're trying to unseal the nine-tailed fox. Shisui's eyes widened and all signs of fatigue vanished from his face. That's quite the thing to be yelling about. Give me 5 seconds to get ready. Itachi gave his approval with a nod, and then Shisui shut the door, leaving behind the clatter of gathered weapons and the hasty rustling of clothing. Shisui quickly opened the door, now equipped for combat rather than sleep. As they made their way to the street, Shisui inquired, do you have any leads? Not at the moment, Itachi answered. The Hokage is putting together a team of Jonin to track them, but I'm hoping that we can catch up to them quickly. Shisui gave Itachi a curious look as her eyes narrowed. Why don't we wait until the tracking team is ready? Neither of us really has those kind of skills. I know, Itachi said. But I feel responsible for this and I'm acting right now as the leader of clan, to show the village that not all Uchiha are alike. I see, Shisui said, then abruptly came to a halt. Itachi stopped too and inquired, what is it? Shisui pointed in front of them in response. Itachi turned in that direction. Father, Mikoto sent me a message, Fugaku said as he approached Itachi and Shisui. He leaned in and said, I came here as soon as I could, I'm glad I caught up to you, in a low voice. What's the situation? Mikoto told me that Sasuke had witnessed the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki being kidnapped by someone with Sharingan. Just so, Itachi whispered in response. We believe that they were Tekka and Anabi and that they plan to unseal the fox and use their Sharingan to control it. We're going after them, but the Hokage is putting together a team of Jonin to track them down as we speak. Understood, replied Fugaku. Do we have a lead? Not as of this moment, Shisui replied. We were just about to figure out a course of action. I see, said the previous clan head. I think I might have an idea then. Itachi questioned, what is it? After giving the two younger Uchiha a signal to follow him, Fugaku leapt to the rooftops and began sprinting from building to building. The police chief added, there is an old shrine outside of the village, followed by Itachi and Shisui. It served as a meeting place of our clan prior to the founding of the Hidden Leaf. It was largely forgotten after we moved to the village, but knowledge of the location has been passed from clan head to clan head over the generations. I used it as a meeting point several times while I was still planning the coup. So Tekka and Anabi learned of its existence by meeting with you there, Shisui speculated. To my shame, yes, Fugaku replied. But I'm certain that is where they would go. It is out of the way, unknown to outsiders, and important to the history of the Uchiha. In their eyes I doubt there is a better place in all the world to enact their plot. Then we shall get there as soon as physically possible, Itachi replied. Lead the way, father. Fugaku muttered, this is it, as he stopped. The three Uchiha stood at the entrance gate of a temple that, based on the quantity of dirt, dust, and garbage strewn all over the grounds, had not seen regular use in many decades. Just by looking, it was impossible to determine that this location was connected to the Uchiha clan. There was no marking in the form of a crest, Sharingan symbols, or other markings. Without prior knowledge, anyone would have ignored this location and written it off as just another long-abandoned sacred site. Itachi questioned, "They're inside?" Fugaku gave a nod. "I suspect so. There's a hidden passageway leading to an underground chamber, similar to the one we use for our current meeting location." Shisui said, "Are we ready to head in?" Itachi was about to say anything when he sensed someone behind him. He turned to find a little dog with a hidden leaf forehead protector and a blue vest sitting on its haunches. Shisui glanced to the animal, following Itachi's gaze. A dog wearing clothes? Strange, but regardless, this is no place for a dog. "Shoo, little one, shoo." "Well, that was rude," the dog remarked. Shisui asked, "It talked?" "Yes, this is Pakun," Itachi said, bending down in front of the ninja dog. "A summoning animal contracted to one of my mentors in the Anbu, Kakashi Hitaki. Can I assume that the captain has been assigned to the tracking squad, Pakun? Since you asked the question, I can guess that you're aware of the situation and are also tracking the kidnappers," the ninja hound responded. "The answer is yes, along with Might Guy and Tenzo. Do you believe the suspects seek refuge in this shrine?" "Yes," Fugaku replied. "This is a long-abandoned Uchiha clan site. We believe they are hiding in a secret underground chamber beneath the shrine." Pakun sniffed the air several times. "There have definitely been people here recently. That might lend credence to your theory." "Time is of the essence," Itachi said. "You go and report to Captain Kakashi, Pakun. We'll forge ahead. Hopefully we'll resolve this quickly, but reinforcements should come just in case." After giving a nod of comprehension, Pakun bolted toward the nearby woodland. "It's good that we were able to link up with the Hokage's squad," Shisui said. "We ready to go?" Itachi said, "Yeah," pulling out his blade. Fugaku produced a kunai as Shisui brought out his own short sword. Moving from cover to cover, the three started to get closer to the shrine's entrance while keeping an eye on their surroundings. Shisui arrived at the entryway first. He said, "Looks like the secret passage has been opened," as his clansmen joined him. Fugaku said, "Then let's move," and slipped inside the structure. Shisui trailed closely behind Itachi as he followed his father inside. The floorboard that had been covering the secret entrance had been pulled aside, revealing it to be open. The three of them spread out and came at the opening from various angles. Shisui said, "I hear voices," as they got closer. "I can't make out what they're saying yet." They stood over the entryway, and Itachi heard them too. As they came down the steps, he could begin to make out words. A voice that sounded like Anabi inquired, "Where is he?" "I don't know," said a second person who sounded like Tekka. "We should start the ritual anyway." "Are you sure?" Anabi questioned, his voice full of anxiety. If he was telling the truth and he's actually Madara, it might be that he's the only one who can control the fox. "My eyes are stronger than they were before. I think I can do it," Tekka said. "When this is over, remind me to visit Yashira's grave and thank him for helping me gain this power." Itachi muttered, "Madara?" He looked at Shisui and Fugaku, but they both were as perplexed as Itachi. With a nod, the three of them turned on their Sharingan. Itachi motioned for Shisui to enter first. For his signature move, Shisui concentrated his chakra. Although many proficient shinobi use the body flicker to increase their speed, Shisui was particularly adept at using it. Shisui vanished from view in a blur of motion that not even a fully formed Sharingan could follow. Running down the steps and around the corner, Itachi and Fugaku saw Shisui standing behind Anabi, his short blade pressed to his clansman's throat. Tekka knelt on the ground beside Naruto's prone body, which had the nine-tailed fox's seal showing on his stomach and his shirt torn open. Tekka's Sharingan was moving between Itachi, Fugaku, and Shisui as they stood in the center of a summoning circle. Tekka extended his hand and covered Naruto's seal with it. "Let's keep calm, everyone. We don't want the beast going berserk." "Don't do it," Shisui cautioned, drawing his blade nearer to Inabi's throat. "I never thought that you would betray our clan, Shisui," Tekka said. "You always seemed so loyal." "I am loyal," Shisui answered. "To my clan and my village both. It's your mistake for thinking those to be two separate things." Itachi stepped forward and said, "Who's this Madara?" Tekka gave the young clan head a quick glance. "You overheard that, huh?" "I don't know. He wears a cloak and a mask that covers his entire face save for his right eye. He has a Sharingan and he's much stronger than any of us here, but beyond that I'm not sure he is who he claims to be." Fugaku inquired, Where is he? He just appeared before us after Yashira's execution, Anabi replied. He told us about the 9 tails and how to control it before he left. We haven't seen him since. So you really are that desperate, said Fugaku. You once wanted to repay the village for how it treats us too, Lord Fugaku, Tekka replied. We're only resorting to this because you've abandoned us. Itachi was preoccupied when he heard footsteps overhead. Tekka, who seemed to have heard the same thing, inquired, Who is coming? What have you done? A figure appeared between the 2 Uchiha groupings, and there was an abrupt flash of green. Have no fear, the Hidden Leaf's majestic green beast is here to save the day. Guy, Kakashi murmured as he approached Itachi and Fugaku from behind. This isn't a time for showboating. So you got my message, Captain, Itachi said. Yes, Kakashi answered. Let's get this over with. The depths of your betrayal really knows no bounds, does it, Itachi? Exclaimed Anabi, clearly straining to control himself as Shisui's blade pressed against his neck. Kakashi just pushed his headband up from his Sharingan eye and turned to his other teammate, ignoring the shouting. What do you think, Tenzo? I don't think we're at risk of the beast breaking free at this particular moment, the other Anbu member responded. The seal should hold, but if they try to break it open some chakra might leak out and I would have to suppress it before it gets out of hand. Understood, Kakashi answered. He asked the 2 kidnappers, Are you ready to come quietly? The question made Tekka frown. Stop looking down on us, thief. He activated the circle by twisting his palm, causing its lines to illuminate. As his seal began to come apart, Naruto screamed as he awoke. Everyone in the room was hit by waves of heat as a red, inhuman chakra started to bubble up. Yes, said Tekka, taking a step back and using his Mangekyo Sharingan. Grant me your power, Fox, and serve your rightful masters, the Uchiha, once more. With a huge, booming laugh coming from it, the chakra came together to form a massive fox head. It said in a deep voice, You think you have the power to control me? You think yourself equal to your ancestors, but you are just a shadow of a shadow. Now sit still and let me kill you. The fox head yelled, releasing a chakra wave that blasted everyone against the walls and threw them back from Naruto. Tenzo! Exclaimed Kakashi. The Anbu member said, on it, making a hand signal. My power brings down mountains and creates hurricanes, Fox stated. It roared once more, unleashing a chakra wave that was stronger than the last, saying, You cannot stop me. Itachi momentarily lost his sense of location, and by the time he regained consciousness, he was flying through the air with fragments of the demolished shrine raining all around him. Father, Shisui, Kakashi! He exclaimed. He managed to realign himself and land on his feet after flipping in the air. He turned to see that Tekka was alone and Shisui and Anabi were together, while Guy, Fugaku, Kakashi, and Tenzo had landed close to him. Everyone had to brace against another surge of chakra before Itachi could assess the situation more thoroughly. The area was being flattened and the remnants of the chamber the fox had been in were being destroyed by its flailing head. Beneath the layers of seething chakra, Naruto was still visible, writhing in agony. Captain, we have to help him, exclaimed Itachi. Yeah, Kakashi answered. Tenzo, can you suppress it? Not at this range, the Anbu member said. I would need someone to help me get close. Kakashi looked across at Guy. That sounds like a job for you. Leave it to me, exclaimed the master of taijutsu. Climb on, he said, bending down in front of Tenzo. Tenzo said, Oh, I'm not looking forward to this, as he hopped upon Guy's back. Guy started giggling. Watch closely, third gate, gate of life, open, he exclaimed, his hair standing on edge and his skin flushed. Guy shot toward Naruto at a speed equal to or higher than Shisui's body flicker. With another roar, the fox head unleashed a concentrated chakra blast at the approaching Jonin. Guy leapt into a front flip after dodging the blow. He grabbed Tenzo by the wrists and threw the Anbu at the fox, causing him to plow through the chakra field. As Naruto soared by, Tenzo extended his hand and touched his palm to his seal. Tenzo landed on the far side, but a string of green light held them together. Wood style. Tailed beast suppression, Tenzo said. Around Naruto, a ring of wooden statues rose out of the earth, and the tailed beast's chakra started to fade. Kakashi said, Can you force it back in? No, Tenzo replied. I can suppress it and keep more chakra from leaking out, but that's the extent of it. Someone else will need to repair the seal and close it. Guy, protect Tenzo, Kakashi commanded. He can't fight while he's using that jutsu. Guy said, Got it, and jumped over Naruto to land beside Tenzo. Shisui! Exclaimed Itachi. Go with him. With a nod, Shisui trailed behind Guy. The kidnapper exclaimed, "Damn you!" as he sprinted past Anabi and tried to seize Shisui, but Shisui slipped beneath and continued to run. Before long, Guy and Shisui were watching over Tenzo from either side. Tekka produced a kunai. He hurled the kunai toward Naruto, who was no longer shielded by the fox's chakra. "Anabi, we need to kill the Jinchuriki. If we can't have the 9 tails, the village can't either," he said. Itachi quickly stepped in and struck the flying weapon with his sword, knocking it out of the air. "I'm sorry, but I promised my little brother that I would bring Naruto back alive." Anabi began to scream. He started looking over the fireball jutsu signs and said, "Arg! I knew I should have put the kid down at that food stall. He's already being infected by your traitorous ways, isn't he?" He started to say, "Don't worry, Tekka, but was unable to finish. A fistful of lightning pierced the Uchiha's heart as he stared down. "Sorry, I can't let you do that," Kakashi stated, releasing his lightning blade and removing his hand from Inabi's chest. The lifeless body of the Uchiha fell to the floor. After turning around, the replica ninja approached Naruto. "Itachi," he yelled. "The 4th Hokage taught me some of his techniques. I might be able to repair the seal. Give me some cover." "Understood," Itachi answered. "Father," he addressed the former clan head, "back me up, I'm going after Tekka." With a nod, Fugaku positioned himself between Itachi and Naruto. Swinging his blade, the young Uchiha leader advanced on his treacherous relative. Tekka backflipped and dove under the blade. Itachi pointed his sword at his adversary and yelled, "Give up, Tekka. You know I'm stronger than you." "Not anymore," Tekka said, pulling out another kunai. He lunged at Itachi, and the two exchanged blows. Itachi's greater abilities gradually prevailed, making contact with Tekka's shoulders and sides and slicing them open. As the injuries rapidly mounted, Tekka swung wildly at Itachi, forcing him to retreat. "Don't make me ask again," Itachi cautioned. "No, it isn't over," Tekka cried, falling to his knees. "It isn't over," he exclaimed, raising his Mangekyo Sharingan. "Amaterasu!" Itachi was hit by a jet of black flame. Itachi shouted, "Water style! Water wall!" while executing the technique's signals and producing a liquid barrier in front of him. He had to dodge as the fire shot by and crashed in a neighboring tree, shocking him as it burnt through the water like kindling. "What was that?" exclaimed Itachi. "The black flames of Amaterasu, one of the special techniques of the Mangekyo Sharingan," Fugaku replied. "Fires so intense they cannot be doused. They will burn until there is nothing left to burn. We'll have to do this together." Itachi gave a nod, and the father-son pair started approaching Tekka from both directions. They were forced to dodge as the treacherous Uchiha opened fire on them, scattering patches of black flame all over the place. As Tekka's strikes grew more unpredictable, blood started to trickle down his cheeks. As Tekka depleted his chakra supplies, the fire became abundant, well-aimed, and less fierce. Itachi responded skillfully and avoided the barrage of blows while keeping an eye on everything through his Sharingan. Finally, he noticed a weakness in Tekka's ferocious attack. Itachi advanced and swung his sword toward Tekka's neck. Fugaku approached from behind and stabbed Tekka in the liver with a kunai, but Tekka was immobile as he ducked beneath the blow. Tekka cried out, "Arg!" as he fell to the floor. "This isn't over," he said while attempting to raise himself. Itachi said, "Yes, it is," as he approached with his blade ready to strike. Tekka looked from Fugaku to Itachi and back again. "You two might be able to dodge me, but they can't. Amaterasu." Itachi turned to face Kakashi and Naruto in a horrifying moment and saw the black flames rushing in their direction. He attempted to sprint in their direction but stumbled due to a sharp pain in his ankle. Glancing back, he saw Tekka removing his kunai from the clan head's foot. With one eye painfully closed and his Sharingan missing from the other, the traitor was laughing. As Fugaku fled after the flame, the laughter ceased, and Itachi's dread grew. He allowed himself to be struck by the black flames by placing himself between it and Naruto and Kakashi. "Arg!" he moaned and dropped to his knees. As the fire started to consume him, he managed to escape, saying, "Itachi, protect the clan, and everyone." As Amaterasu's flames engulfed him, he collapsed to the ground. Itachi sensed a shift in himself. He felt his head throbbing and a flash of anguish behind his eyes. He heard Tekka say, "Damn it," from behind him. Itachi turned to face the traitor, who gasped. Itachi acted at that precise moment due to something like to instinct. "Tsukuyomi," he murmured, meeting Tekka's gaze. Itachi stood in a universe of harsh black and white figures and crimson skies. Tekka stood in front of him, his wounds from Itachi and Fugaku no longer visible. The treacherous Uchiha looked around and said, "What is this?" Itachi scowled and wished Tekka had been gagged. A rope materialized in Tekka's lips at that same time. "I see," Itachi said. He looked down at his own hands and said, "This is some kind genjutsu, isn't it? I'm not sure exactly how I cast it, though." Tekka opened his mouth to shout, but his words were muffled by his gag. Tekka was about to jump at Itachi when the clan head ordered his opponent to be restrained in a pillory. Suddenly, Tekka's wrists and head were locked by a wooden device. Itachi moved forward, lifting his blade above his head. He shouted, "This is for my father," as he struck Tekka in the neck with the weapon. The traitor's head rolled on the completely black ground after being removed from his shoulders. Itachi's only wish while he watched was to murder Tekka once more. Tekka was once entire and bound in front of him as soon as the idea crossed his thoughts. Itachi slammed the blade through Tekka's right leg after flipping his sword to an underhanded grip. Itachi extended the weapon farther to trap Tekka to the ground, forcing his opponent to his knees. He made a second sword appear in his hand and did the same with Tekka's other leg. "Now," Itachi said, turning to face Tekka and wishing the gag would go. "Tell me everything you know about this masked man claiming to be Madara." "I already told you," Tekka answered. "Come on, there has to be something," Itachi remarked. "Did he talk about when he last took control of the Nine Tails? When he fought the first Hokage, perhaps?" "I'm not telling you anything," Tekka answered. Tekka let out a yell of agony as Itachi used another sword to pierce his shoulder, drawing him nearer to the ground and pinning him there as well. Itachi bowed down to the betrayer. "Tell me." "Fine," Tekka muttered. He didn't talk about fighting the first Hokage. He said he had been behind the Nine Tails attack several years ago, but the fourth Hokage defeated him before sealing the beast. Itachi questioned, "Did he want revenge?" "I assume," Tekka replied. Itachi asked, "But why wait so long?" Not mentioning the idea that he could still be alive after that much time, it seems unbelievable. "I don't know if he's the real Madara," Tekka remarked. "But he's powerful. He demonstrated that when he revealed himself to Anabi and me." Itachi scowled. This was all incomprehensible. How is Madara Uchiha still alive? His natural lifespan would have ended years ago, ignoring the fact that the first Hokage was supposed to have killed him after he betrayed the village. Madara could have taken control of the Nine Tails at any moment, but even acknowledging that he was still alive didn't explain why he waited so long to attack the village. In light of that, where did the Nine Tails originate? Something that strong doesn't simply materialize and vanish unless it can be sealed away by a cage. Itachi raised his arm above his head and conjured up another sword. "You'd better hope you have more answers for me," he told Tekka. With a determined defiance in his eyes, the traitor turned to face the other way. "I have nothing more to offer you, so just kill me. It's clear at this point that I never had a hope of stopping you from destroying the clan." Itachi said, "It was never me that was going to destroy it," and then he swung his sword. But the universe of red and black genjutsu vanished in the instant before his blade struck Tekka. Itachi awoke and looked into Tekka's lifeless eyes. Itachi died before the technique he had unintentionally employed on him could be finished. Additionally, he sensed that it was very chakra-intensive. The level of fatigue he felt at that very moment was unprecedented. Pulling himself to his knees, he also realized that very little of the time he had spent in the illusionary world had been spent outside of it. While Tenzo restrained the Nine Tails chakra under Guy and Shisui's protection, Kakashi continued to work on fixing Naruto's seal. And the dark flames of Amaterasu continued to burn in the burnt remains of his father. Itachi stumbled on his cut ankle and winced as he forced himself to stand. He moved toward his father's body, which was reduced to a heap of melted bones and skin. Before he started crying, Itachi was self-conscious. When he came into contact with the black fire, the tears that had fallen from his face vanished. Shisui joined Itachi and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she muttered. The clan head looked to his closest companion. "I just can't believe he's gone," Itachi answered. Guy went over to the two Uchiha. The green-clad Jonin clenched his hands and started crying, saying, "You should be proud. Your father died as a shinobi should, protecting others. You should honor him by using the springtime of your youth to its fullest." Itachi gazed at Guy, unsure of how to interpret his words. Then he grinned, though. "I see. I think. Thank you, Guy." Guy responded with a nod. Shortly after, the green chakra that connected Tenzo to Naruto's seal vanished. "It's done," Kakashi declared as he took a seat beside Naruto's comatose body. "The seal is repaired." Guy questioned, "Then the mission is a success?" The Anbu captain said, Seems to be, and pulled his headband back over his Sharingan eye. Itachi slung his arm around Shisui's shoulders. Help me. I'd like to speak with Kakashi alone. Sure, Shisui said, assisting his clansmen in getting to Naruto and Kakashi. Before leaving, he set Itachi down next them. Itachi remarked, I'm glad that I was able to save him, as he glanced down at Naruto. I promised my little brother that I would. I don't think I would have been able to face Sasuke if I had failed. Kakashi questioned, is your brother close to him? Yes, they've recently struck up a friendship, Itachi said. I'm sure Sasuke was quite traumatized by witnessing his new friend being kidnapped. With a nod, Kakashi gazed off into the distance. Good to hear he has a friend who cares that much for him. Seems we both had reasons why we couldn't fail this mission. From the corner of his eye, Itachi saw his Anbu mentor's body language. I suppose so. He's the last legacy of your teacher, the fourth Hokage, after all. With his one visible eye still inscrutable, Kakashi turned to face Itachi. You could say that. I certainly don't think I could have faced Minato-sensei in the next life if I had failed here tonight. Naruto laid between the two prodigies while they sat there in silence for a while. I'm sorry about your father, Kakashi replied, ending the silence. I know how hard it can be to lose a parent. Thank you, Itachi answered. But if I could ask just one question, Kakashi went on. What was that fire technique Tekka used? Was it related to the Sharingan? Itachi paused, not sure if he should tell anybody outside the clan about this. However, he had every right to know that Kakashi had the same eye as him. It is called Amaterasu, a deadly fire jutsu created by the Mangekyo Sharingan. Mangekyo, Kakashi said once again. That's some special form of the Sharingan? Seems you Uchiha have been keeping secrets from me. It's nothing against you personally, Itachi answered. I'm sure for some of you it is, Kakashi shot back. You heard Tekka call me a thief, didn't you? Itachi took a time to gather his thoughts. My apologies, but while some of my clan might feel that way, I've never begrudged you for it. In fact, I respect your ability to command a power you were not born to wield. Yes, said Kakashi. Pleasantries aside, what is this Mangekyo Sharingan? Itachi inhaled deeply while checking to make sure the others weren't hearing them. It is a rare and powerful manifestation of the Sharingan that not many even within the clan are aware of. I myself only learned of its existence relatively recently. The reason for this is that the Mangekyo is only attained by a Sharingan wielder witnessing the death of someone they care for deeply, and even then only a select few have the capacity to use it. Tekka, for example, probably acquired his after seeing Yashira's execution while Anabi apparently did not. It's part the reason why its existence is kept secret, for fear that power-hungry members of the clan might kill those close to them in desperate and potentially futile bids for strength. Kakashi answered, I see, with a look in his eye that suggested he was recalling a very upsetting experience. It does indeed sound like a dangerous power. And did you acquire it just now? Yes, I believe so, Itachi replied. I'm still not entirely certain as to what the new abilities of my eyes are, but they are not without cost. Their chakra consumption is very high and the backlash can damage the eye. Kakashi responded, I think I understand, and got to his feet. Naruto was delicately scooped up by the fourth Hokage student and placed in his arms. Let's get to the hospital. Itachi said, I'll come too, as he attempted, but was unable, to stand on his wounded ankle. Guy, said Kakashi. Help Itachi, Guy said, sure thing, and approached the Uchiha clan leader. The Jonin bent down and extended his back to Itachi. Oh, no, I'm fine, Itachi started, frantically attempting to stand. When he attempted to place his weight on his wounded ankle, he faltered and fell onto Guy's back in the ideal piggyback position. Guy said, let the flower of your youth bloom, and started running. Uncertain whether this was better than simply limping the distance to the hospital, Itachi clutched on for dear life. A nurse opened the hospital room door and remarked, You've got visitors, in a same Sanji voice. Itachi opened his eyes and turned to face the doctor. Thank you, you can send them in. With a nod, the nurse moved out of the doorway to make room for two guests to enter. Makoto's face was filled with dread as she saw her oldest son, while Sasuke's expression was muted as he gazed at the ground. Makoto said, Honey, as she approached Itachi's bed, are you going to be okay? Yes, mother, Itachi replied. It'll take some time for my ankle to fully heal, but otherwise I'm in one piece. Thank goodness, said Makoto. And your father? Before eventually forcing the words out, Itachi hesitated for a time, feeling them get stuck in his throat. He gave his life for the success of the mission and to protect the clan. Makoto's eyes started to flood up with tears. She went to her knees and sobbed into Itachi's bed linens, unable to speak further due to her tears. I heard, but I couldn't. She had obviously been informed of her husband's passing, but she was unable to accept it completely until Itachi confirmed it. Sasuke tugged at Itachi's sleeve. Brother, is Naruto okay? Can I see him? He's all right, Sasuke, Itachi answered. Unfortunately, the Hokage has placed him under special protection for the moment, so you can't see him yet. But I promise you'll see him again soon. Sasuke questioned, are the ones that took him dead? Itachi was taken aback as Sasuke raised his eyes to display a pair of Sharingan. With only one tomo in each eye, it was obvious that they had just woken up, but their anger burned brightly. Yes, Itachi replied. Tekka and Inabi were both killed. Good, Sasuke said, staring straight ahead. If they weren't, I'd have to kill them for taking Naruto and killing father. Makoto put a palm on Sasuke's head and stopped crying. His fury seemed to subside as soon as she touched him, and his Sharingan vanished. It's okay, Sasuke, she replied. You don't have to worry about that. Makoto got to his feet. I think we should leave, Itachi. I'll make you something special for dinner once you get back. That would be lovely, mother, Itachi answered. Makoto turned around after giving her oldest son a smile. By the way, Itachi, Izumi was asking after you. Oh, I see, Itachi replied. I guess she must have been worried after everything that happened. Come, Sasuke, Makoto commanded. Running to his mother's side, Sasuke grasped her hand. They exited the room together. Itachi struggled with the questions in his mind now that he was by himself. This Madara, who was she? Did they really plan the Nine Tails attack? In the end, everything revolved around itself, with unknowns creating more unknowns. Itachi's only certainty was that he had to learn more. His brother and mother were leaving the hospital when he looked out the window. Itachi heard the opening of the door. Lord Hokage, he murmured, turning to see the village chief enter the room. The Hokage said, Hello, Itachi, and shut the door. I'm sorry about your father's death. He died as a shinobi should, Itachi remarked, recalling what Guy had said. I intend to honor his sacrifice. Good, said the Hokage. The elderly shinobi took out a chair and sat down, saying, I've already taken reports from Kakashi, Tenzo, Guy, and Shisui. I would like to hear your version of the events now. It was as you thought, my lord, Itachi said. Tekka and Inabi were desperate enough to try and take control of the nine-tailed fox. They didn't seem capable of doing so when they partially released the tailed beast. We were able to defeat them and repair Naruto's seal, though my father gave his life to save Kakashi and Naruto from Tekka's final attack. Shisui mentioned that Tekka and Inabi were inspired to attempt this by a masked man bearing a Sharingan and claiming to be Madara Uchiha, the Hokage stated. The others did not include such a detail. Is there a reason why? Itachi responded, We overheard Tekka and Inabi discussing the supposed Madara. We confronted them on the issue, but Kakashi and his team arrived after. They did not hear about it. The Hokage questioned, Do you believe there is validity to what they claim? I don't see a reason for them to lie, Itachi said. I was also able to place Tekka under a genjutsu shortly before he died of his wounds. I pressed him for more information and he said that Madara claimed to have been behind the Nine Tails attack and planned to destroy the village before he was stopped by the fourth Hokage. The Hokage rubbed his chin thoughtfully. A Madara-like figure could certainly explain some of the mysteries of that horrific night. Itachi squinted his eyes. What mysteries, Lord Hokage? Forget I said anything, Hiruzen answered. In the meanwhile, you've done a service to the village, and as you said it was not as a shinobi of the leaf but as the head of your clan. I would like to reward you for your service. I can't ask for anything, Itachi declared. I'm just glad that the village was saved. Nothing at all? Inquired the Hokage. I can't ask you to keep putting these responsibilities on your shoulders without offering something in return. Itachi watched Kakashi and Guy leave the hospital as he peered out the window. There are a couple of things, actually. Go ahead and ask me then, answered the Hokage. First, Itachi began. I would like for Kakashi to be assigned as Sasuke's teacher when he graduates from the academy. Interesting request, said the Hokage. Any reason as to why? I believe it's another way to bridge the gap between the clan and the village, Itachi said. There are many among the Uchiha who view Kakashi as a thief for using a Sharingan despite not being one of us. I think having him teach Sasuke would be a good way to demonstrate the folly of that view. I understand your perspective, the Hokage replied. Unfortunately, Kakashi is a young man who has suffered a great deal of tragedy over the last several years, and it has taken an emotional toll on him. I am uncertain how well suited he is to be teaching genin or taking care of children. Then please, Lord Hokage, Itachi murmured. Help Kakashi be ready for it. There's still a few years before Sasuke graduates. Who knows, might even do him some good. The Hokage let out a sigh. You have made your case, Itachi. I will see what I can do. Was there something else? Yes, Itachi answered. I would like to be the one to investigate the supposed Madara and any possible connection to the Nine Tails attack. The Hokage remarked, that is definitely something worth looking into, and you and Shisui are the only people alive who heard them discussing the masked Madara. I will grant your request. You and Shisui will report to my office to start your investigation once you are healed. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Itachi bowed his head. The village chief got up, put the chair back where it had been, and left the room without saying anything more. Itachi quickly fell asleep when he was by himself. Itachi walked down the walkway to his house using crutches. Do you require assistance? Makoto, strolling beside her kid, inquired. No, Itachi replied. Just get the door for me. Makoto said, sure thing, and hurried to open the door to the house. As his mother shut the door behind him, Itachi stepped through the threshold, pausing to remove his sandals before saying, I think I would like to spend some time alone in the garden. Okay, Makoto answered. Itachi continued down the hallway, pausing as he passed his parents' bedroom to look at the empty bed. It was odd to think that his father was not there, and he couldn't help but wonder if he could have prevented this tragedy if he had just made a different decision somewhere along the way. Itachi shook the thought from his head before moving on to the garden, where he sat on the edge of the covered walkway that connected it to the rest of the house and placed his crutches on the ground. He enjoyed the atmosphere of the garden for a while before becoming sidetracked by the sound of footsteps getting closer. Sasuke, what is it? Glancing over his shoulder at his younger sibling, Itachi asked. Welcome back, brother, the boy said. Yes, I was fortunate to simply stay in the hospital for one night. Itachi said, I'm happy to be out. After giving a nod, Sasuke simply stood there, twitching his foot uneasily. Do you want to ask me a question? Itachi inquired. Why did they take Naruto, brother? I thought about it and it just doesn't make much sense, Sasuke retorted. Since Naruto is an orphan, there isn't really anyone to demand money from or anything. And why would our clan members act in such a way? Itachi took a minute to observe his brother, who was obviously starting to doubt things and become more conscious of the secrets that were being withheld from him. Not all that different from Itachi himself, in fact. Does that fox boy moniker have anything to do with it? I asked the bullies who were calling Naruto that, and they said they heard it from their parents, Sasuke inquired. Are the adults hiding something about Naruto from us? Itachi assumed that all of the children in the village would eventually learn of Naruto's nature as a Jinchuriki, but that didn't mean Sasuke should learn about it now. The boy was beginning to piece things together, and Itachi knew that his brother was sharper than the average child his age, so if bits of information kept falling in front of him, Sasuke would follow them back to the source. Like I told you, that's just a cruel nickname, Itachi replied. Probably has something to do with those whisker-like birthmarks on his cheeks. Sasuke said, as if the response didn't convince him. Itachi presided over a Uchiha clan assembly once more. However, because 3 of the clan's members were not there, this conference had a more solemn atmosphere than the tense one that had before it. With just his mother to help him, Itachi felt even more alone in the clan head's position. Itachi said, I'm sure you all have heard at least bits and pieces of recent events, to the assembled Uchiha in front of him. I have no doubt that you are all aware that Tekka, Anabi, and my father are no longer with us. This meeting was called to share the most important details of the incident that took all of their lives. Itachi looked around the assembled Uchiha, trying to find a response. They appeared to be anticipating his arrival. Itachi looked over his shoulder at his mother, who was staring at the room with a grim expression. The young clan head inhaled deeply. After our previous meeting, Tekka and Anabi could not bring themselves to accept that we had put the coup plans on hold and choose a drastic course of action in a desperate bid to act out their vendetta against the village. They kidnapped the child in whom the 9-tailed fox is sealed and attempted to free the beast. The room was filled with murmurs, and Itachi noticed shocked looks everywhere he glanced. The majority of the shinobi appeared unsure on how to interpret this. Tayaki, the store owner, frowned disapprovingly. When Akihiko got up, everyone fell silent. The man with few words questioned, what was their reason for doing this? Inspired by tales of our ancestor Madara, Itachi said in a half-truth, they thought that they could use their Sharingan to take control of the 9 tails and use it to destroy the village. This stunned everyone in the room to such an extent that there was total quiet. Itachi went on, "My father and I discovered their intentions and pursued them, fearing that they would fail and endanger us all, in a version of the narrative that had been carefully edited. They failed to control the Nine Tails but managed to partially open the seal on it. We had to work together with a squad sent by the Hokage in order to suppress the beast and prevent it from breaking free and rampaging. Tekka, Anabi, and my father were all killed in the ensuing struggle." Someone got up in the far corner of the room, where the younger clan members sat to be seen but not heard. Itachi was shocked to discover that it was Izumi Uchiha, his boyhood buddy and old classmate. She cried, "Why would they think to do that?" As tears filled her eyes, "My father died to protect the village from the nine-tailed fox and it killed so many other people." Indeed, how could Itachi have overlooked it? When Izumi's mother was a teenager, she fled the clan by eloping with a local shinobi who had no particular ancestry or clan. Itachi recognized that it had been a hotly debated issue at the time. Izumi actually lived in the village during her early years, apart from the rest of the clan, and they didn't return to the Uchiha compound until her father was killed in battle with the Nine Tails. Given the circumstances surrounding his demise, Izumi's resentment of the notion that her own relatives would attempt to unleash the beast again was understandable. "I was always hesitant about the coup, but I went along with it because so many of the senior shinobi thought it was necessary for the survival of the clan," Izumi said. "But if the Uchiha would really stoop so low, then we really are as terrible as some people say we are." Izumi paused, rummaging through her pockets. She took out and fastened her hidden leaf headband. "If that is what it means to be a Uchiha, then I refuse to be one. I am a kunoichi of the hidden leaf, and I will honor my father's legacy if it kills me," she said, pointing to the emblem on her headband with an angry and fiercely determined expression on her tear-streaked face. Itachi was shocked to learn this, and he was positive that many members of the clan were completely taken aback by Izumi's passionate declarations. The notion that someone would rather not be Uchiha. The majority of the clan would never even entertain the idea. Even Itachi had never considered himself anything other than Uchiha, despite his basic loyalty to the town. In a hurry, Izumi's mother approached her daughter and attempted to take her arm. Izumi recoiled from her contact. Shisui got to his feet and positioned himself between them. "That was beautifully said, Izumi," Shisui remarked. "However, I think you are taking an unnecessary step in saying that you would rather not be a Uchiha. I do not believe that being a proud Uchiha and being a loyal shinobi of Leaf are mutually exclusive." Shisui was one of the clan's most skilled shinobi, therefore his advice was highly respected. Even yet, Itachi was wary of his friend's initiative in this situation. They had benefited much from the false impression that Shisui's allegiance to the village was subordinated to his allegiance to the clan. This may be a pivotal time, the young clan head realized. "Look at the example of my ancestor Kagami," Shisui went on. "He was one of the second Hokage's most trusted lieutenants and a close confidant of the third, yet he never abandoned the clan. Based on that and my own experiences in the regular forces, I believe there is great role in this village that we are currently leaving unfulfilled because we think some people are not showing us as much respect as we think we deserve. Perhaps if we embraced that role we could prove to everyone that we are worthy of that respect." "That seems like a reasonable position," Tayaki said, nodding his head in agreement. Itachi looked around the space. It appeared that the revolt had subsided with the departure of Yashira, Tekka, and Anabi, making room for additional conversation. Itachi was beginning to see hope for the future for the first time in a long time, and those who were still there appeared to be at least receptive to the idea of making amends with the community. "Very well," replied the clan head. Itachi felt a burden lifted off his shoulders when he said, "If there are no dissenting opinions, then we shall put an end to all talk of a coup." He wondered how many other people in attendance felt the same way. At the very least, nobody appeared enthusiastic about supporting the coup. Despite the expenses involved, Itachi gave himself permission to inhale deeply and relish this triumph. "That seems to be the end of that." Akihiko stated, "There is one last issue I would like to discuss. What is to become of Lord Fugaku's position as head of the military police? Will it be passed to you, Lord Itachi?" Itachi started to say something, but his mother interrupted him from behind. "I will be taking over my husband's position," Makoto declared. Itachi cast a curious glimpse at his mother over his shoulder. He couldn't recall talking to her about this. His nonverbal question went unanswered by her. "Excuse me, my lady," said Jun. "Are you sure you should be the one do it? I don't mean any disrespect, but—" Makoto grinned. "Young Jun, you were still a child when I stepped away from active duty to raise my children, but I will have you know that I was one of the finest Jonin in the clan. I'm perfectly capable of this. Besides, If I remember correctly, you are serving with the regular forces, so whoever is in charge of the military police should be of no concern to you. Unless you wish to transfer back. No, my lady, Jun answered. I would actually like to stay with my current assignment. I've been inspired by Shisui's example and Lord Itachi's faith in me. I want to be a bridge connecting our clan and our village. Itachi held back a grin. Despite all of the difficulties they had faced, things were beginning to come together and their situation was improving. If that is the final topic of discussion, then let us be done for today, Itachi replied. The clan members started to get up and depart the gathering place after he said that. Itachi glanced to his mother as the room started to get smaller. Why didn't you tell me that you were going to take over father's position? He inquired. I've been wrestling with the issue ever since I learned of his death, Makoto said. By tradition, the head of the Uchiha clan would serve as the military police chief, but I thought that would not work well for you. What do you mean? Itachi inquired, though he had to acknowledge that he had never given the idea of becoming police chief a second thought. Simply put, your relationship with the Hokage is too valuable, Makoto said. For the sake of the clan, you must stay in Lord Hokage's trust and be an advocate for us. Being police chief is prestigious, but also isolating. There is no way you could maintain your relationship with the village leadership from that position. I see, Itachi replied. Thank you for thinking of me. Always, my son, Makoto answered. Looks like you have visitor, she continued, glancing beyond Itachi. The young clan head turned to see Izumi patiently awaiting him. Oh, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. No, it's okay, Izumi said. With a blush flickering across her cheeks, she looked away from Itachi. Makoto got up and started to leave the room. I'll leave you two alone. Itachi said, okay. Mother, not sure why she felt the urge to leave. Izumi remarked, Itachi, drawing his attention. I just want to thank you for ending all this coup talk. I know you've wanted to stop it just like I did, so I'm glad you were able to pull it off. I'm glad too, Itachi said in response. I couldn't have done it without Shisui though. Izumi laughed. It must be nice have a reliable older brother type, huh, Itachi? Oh, I guess I should start calling you, Lord, now. Itachi gave a headshake. No need. We grew up and went to the academy together, so please, don't act like you don't know me. All right, Izumi said, grinning broadly. Besides, Itachi added as he stood up, I should be thanking you. Your passion and bravery was the kind of thing needed to push things forward. Oh, Izumi blushed in response. I guess I just got riled up when I heard the part about the 9 tails. Considering everything that happened to your family, I understand, Itachi replied. They were silent for a bit, awkward rather than poignant. Izumi responded, well, breaking the silence. I guess I should go. Itachi said, oh, all right, as he watched his boyhood friend dash out to join the last group of people leaving the room. He noticed Shisui, who was still waiting in the room's corner. While he watched her go, he was waved over by Itachi. Shisui came over and said, what's going on? Itachi made sure the final few persons were out of earshot by checking again. Lord Hokage has another mission for us. What kind? Inquired Shisui. We're going to investigate the masked Madara, Itachi replied. Shisui gave a nod. That would make sense, we're the only people in the village who've heard of him at this point. Got any idea where we'll start? Itachi clarified, I awakened my Mangekyo Sharingan when my father died. I used it to cast a genjutsu on Tekka before he died and was able to get more information out of him. Apparently this supposed Madara claimed that he had been the one to send the 9 tails against the village and had fought the 4th Hokage and lost. We're going to see if we can find any evidence to support that. Shisui said, when are we starting? My ankle is mostly healed now, so we should go and talk with Lord Hokage tomorrow morning, Itachi replied. Sasuke waited in the academy's entrance hall. It seemed to be everything he had done since Naruto was taken from him. Wait for Itachi to save him, for him to recuperate in the hospital, and for the Hokage and his people to complete whatever task they required of him. However, Naruto's wait would come to an end today, and he would resume his studies. One of the teachers who had been filling in since Iruka's hospitalization said, Sasuke, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be heading to class? Sasuke looked back at the teacher with a frown on his face. He was becoming impatient. The stand inside. He turned to face the front door and said, I don't know what you're doing here, but just go. When Sasuke turned, the doors were open. Naruto, he remarked as he approached his friend. Hey, Sasuke, Naruto smiled in response. Oh, that kid's back, the instructor remarked. Whatever, just get to class, you two. Okay. Okay, Naruto answered. He said, let's go, Sasuke, and began to move down the hallway. The young Uchiha trailed behind, looking at the instructor over his shoulder. Why did he act so contemptuously? More attention ought to be given to the return of a student who had been abducted and vanished. As they strolled, Naruto inquired, has Iruka-sensei not come back yet? Sasuke turned back to his companion. No, but he's expected to return at the start of next week. He's in better shape than those two people from the ramen place though, they're still in comas. That sucks, Naruto said. I was hoping Iruka-sensei would be the one to welcome me back and take me out to Ichiraku for real. Maybe Naruto was right, Sasuke thought. Naruto would have been greeted more kindly if Iruka had been back in class. I heard that your dad was killed trying to save me, Naruto replied. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Sasuke answered. Naruto screamed, he did it for me, and stopped. I don't want anyone else to not have parents because of me. I know how much that hurts, so I'm sorry. Like I said, Sasuke answered. I don't blame you. It was someone else, a member of my own clan, who killed him and now he's dead too. It wasn't your fault. Naruto looked away. I don't get it, why don't you hate me too? Sasuke questioned. Why would I hate you? Naruto shrugged and started to walk again. I don't know, but almost everyone does. Been that way for as long as I can remember. Probably the reason why they kidnapped me. Sasuke asked, you think people hate you that much? Naruto said, probably, before a smile appeared on his face. But I won't let them feel that way forever. I'm going to erase whatever reasons they have when I become Hokage. That dream of his reappeared. Hokage. For Naruto, everything seemed to come back to that. Perhaps he was mistaken to pursue such a distant objective, or perhaps he was correct to see things that way. However, Sasuke could see that it wasn't idle gossip or a flight of fancy. Every time Naruto spoke, he meant every word. It inspired him to overcome his situation. Sasuke knew deep down that he had nothing like it. They had no problems walking the remaining distance to the classroom. After then, the substitute instructor showed up and started the lesson without any problems. Lessons progressed without incident. Sasuke didn't get it and it was aggravating him more and more. This wasn't simply some typical day. One of your classmates had been kidnapped, disappeared, and wound up in the hospital. There was no recognition of his absence, no statement of his homecoming or explanation for why he'd been gone. Maybe the adults truly did detest Naruto for some reason. These thoughts burnt themselves into Sasuke's head as the day passed. He finished the classwork and he absorbed the concepts, but nothing possessed more real estate in his thoughts than the way Naruto was being handled. It so absorbed him that Sasuke was nearly astonished when the bell rang to announce the lunch break. The other students began to get out of their seats and leave the room while the teacher packed up his papers and went. Sasuke glanced across at Naruto sitting a few rows in front of him, observing that he was neither moving to grab lunch in the cafeteria nor was he pulling out anything that he had packed himself. Sasuke dug beneath his desk and discovered the lunch his mother had made for him before standing up and coming over to Naruto. Here, Sasuke remarked, placing his food between them. Naruto questioned, are you sure? Sasuke gave a nod. He opened his meal and began shoving part of the food into the handkerchief it had been wrapped in, saying, it's annoying to see you be so pitiful. Thanks, Naruto answered. I forgot all about making a lunch for today, with getting out of the hospital and all. Shikamaru spun around in the chair facing Sasuke and Naruto. Wait, you were in the hospital? Yeah, Naruto replied, accepting the food that Sasuke had offered. Shikamaru questioned, what happened? Choji and I were wondering where you were. Yeah, Choji replied. We tried asking that sub about it but he wouldn't say a word. Whispering, well, listen here guys, Naruto leaned in. I was kidnapped. Shocked, Shikamaru flinched back. No way, dude, I don't believe you. It's true, Naruto replied. The young child was grinning, his ordeal now a fascinating tale to share with others. They knocked me out with some crazy jutsu and ran off with me. Next thing I knew I was in the hospital and the old man Hokage was there telling me that he had sent a squad of super badass ninja to come and save me. I'm with Shikamaru, said Choji. There's no way that's true. He's not lying, Sasuke declared. I was there when it happened and my brother was on the team that went after the kidnappers. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, Shikamaru said in response. That sounds like it was a real drag. With a worried expression on his face, Choji crossed his arms. Yeah, and now I'm wondering if something happened to Iruka-sensei too. Oh, that, Naruto remarked, suddenly displaying a guilty expression. Haruka-sensei was there too. He got hurt really bad trying to protect me. I can't believe nobody thought to tell us, Shikamaru remarked. After giving the Nara youngster some thought, Sasuke said, and why kidnap you? None of this is making sense, now that I think about it. It seems that he wasn't the only one who thought this was strange. Choji extended his arm to give Naruto a shoulder pat. Well, whatever the reason, I'm glad you're okay, Naruto. Yeah, same for me, replied Shikamaru. Sasuke heard the barely faint mumble, I'm so glad, behind him. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw Hinata sitting in the rear corner seat, gazing at Naruto's back with a gentle smile. She turned away as she saw Sasuke. Sasuke turned around and pondered the scenario that had just unfolded. It was encouraging to know that there were other children besides his who were concerned about Naruto's fate. However, it still didn't explain why, unless Naruto was misbehaving, every adult save Iruka and those two ramen shop owners consistently ignored him. Then there was the actual kidnapping and the reasons for it. Sasuke was starting to believe that the adults were concealing a secret about Naruto from them, possibly all the children in the village, and even Naruto. Sasuke was determined to identify it. Naruto had almost been taken from him, and he had already lost his father. He was not going to watch helplessly any longer. In order to avoid inquisitive eyes and listening ears, Itachi took a seat in one of the Hokage residence's remote briefing rooms. Shisui and the Hokage accompanied him. The village chief inquired, has the situation with your clan calmed down? Itachi looked at the wall. Before we begin, Danzo, are you there? I asked, but got no answer. Have no fear, Itachi, declared the Hokage. I've made sure that Danzo has no involvement with this particular issue. That's good to hear, sir, Itachi answered. And to answer your question, Lord Hokage, said Shisui. Yes, it seems that after the recent incident support for a coup has died down within the clan. The Hokage took a drag from his pipe and nodded slowly. Excellent. I can only hope that the sacrifices it took to get here will be worthwhile. But that is not the primary reason for your being here. We need to get you two started on your investigation. Itachi, you told me that the masked Madara claimed to be behind the Nine Tails attack, correct? Yes, that is what Tekka told me under Genjutsu, Itachi affirmed. It seems that is the best place to start. Shisui questioned, what can we investigate? We're talking about events that happened years ago. The Hokage placed his pipe on his lap and inhaled deeply. There are certain details about that night that are not known to the general public. I will share them with you too, but you must never tell anyone else. Understood, my lord, Itachi answered. The first mystery, one that has stuck with me for all these years, was how slow Minato was to get to the battlefield, the Hokage said. A shinobi with his prodigious speed should have been among the first on the scene, even if he had been preoccupied at the time or if news of the attack had been slow to get to him. Unless a highly skilled enemy held him up, Itachi remarked. Someone like a Madara Uchiha. The Hokage gave a nod. The theory certainly fits. In contemplation, Shisui put his hand to his chin. Except, where would such a battle have taken place? We never found anything to suggest that a battle between shinobi happened that night, the third said. However, shortly after he became Hokage, Minato set up a number of safe houses in the outlying areas surrounding the village so that he could teleport to them in emergency situations. He never shared their locations, not with me, the Anbu, or even his own personal guards. That creates an opening then, Shisui remarked. Lord Fourth could have fled to one of these safe houses only for the enemy to pursue and engage him there. Since no one would know where to look, we wouldn't find out. Though, how could the enemy have known to pursue him there in the first place? The chances of that do seem slim, Itachi said. However, we can't rule it out. I think one of our main goals should be to find these safe houses and see if any evidence is to be found. Shisui gave a nod. I agree. It will take some time to search that large an area, but it is a lead. I do have one other concern, Lord Hokage, Itachi went on, if you'd allow me to ask. Go ahead, said the Hokage. The Uchiha questioned, where did the fox come from? As far as I'm aware, Madara used it to battle the first Hokage early on the village's history, then it just disappears until it pops up one day, attacks the village, and gets sealed by the fourth. Where could it have gone? Furthermore, couldn't Madara, assuming he survived, have taken back control of the Nine Tails at any time? Why wait so long? Before replying, the Hokage looked back and forth between the two Uchiha for a brief period of silence. Very well, I will tell you. However, before I do, understand that this is a matter of the utmost secrecy. Even more so than what we've already discussed. This is a state secret of the highest level, dating back almost to the founding of the Hidden Leaf itself. In anticipation, Itachi swallowed. We understand. The third stated, the nine tails didn't just vanish after Madara's defeat, it was sealed away. Shisui questioned, by the first Hokage. The third gave a headshake. No, by his wife, Mito. She was an expert in sealing jutsu, one of the best this village has ever seen, and she sealed the nine tails within herself to become its first Jinchuriki. The village has controlled the nine tails ever since, though we kept it secret and never sought to use it as a weapon, as other villages experimented with. Shisui and Itachi exchanged shocked glances. Wow, exclaimed the former. That would explain why Madara couldn't have used the fox. The Hokage gave a nod. Yes, that is the reason. Lady Mito passed on many years ago, but before she died she arranged for the tailed beast's transfer to a new host, a young girl from her clan who possessed a rare ability that made her exceptionally well suited to keeping the nine tails' power in check. Shisui questioned, who was this girl? She was, as fate would have it, someone who would also marry a Hokage, the third replied. In this case it was Kushina Uzumaki, Minato's wife. Uncertain of how to interpret this knowledge, Itachi's mouth fell open. His eyes were wide with surprise as he turned to look at Shisui. So then, Itachi said, still processing. Was she still the Jinchuriki the night that? She was, the Hokage cut in. And she was pregnant. Itachi's jaw would have fallen if it could have. It couldn't, and the only sign of his growing shock was his astonished stillness. Shisui appeared to heal more quickly. What's the significance of her being pregnant? Pregnancies in female Jinchuriki are more strenuous than normal, the Hokage responded. The body already spends a significant amount of energy maintaining the seal on the tailed beast, and the effort that is taken to nurture a child in the womb makes it even more difficult. This has the effect of lengthening the pregnancy and, more importantly, makes the seal progressively weaker as it goes along. For that reason Kushina's pregnancy was considered to be top secret. Itachi released a breath he had been holding without realizing it. So, Madara could have taken advantage of a compromised seal to unleash the nine tails and take control of it. Yes, the Hokage answered. Not that an outside force would have been necessary, there had been a chance that the demon fox would break out on its own. We took many precautions against that, but the possibility had always existed. The only thing we were more sure of was that we had kept Kushina's pregnancy secret. But if someone as powerful as Madara had somehow discovered it, he could have easily overcome our defenses and broken Kushina's seal. My wife had been overseeing the birth and the location was being monitored by a team of the most trusted Anbu. We had assumed that they were the fox's first victims, but perhaps they had fallen to a more human foe. Wow, Itachi exclaimed, holding his face in his palms. Except, Uzumaki. Naruto is her son, their son. The Hokage gave a serious nod. But his heritage is a secret because of the fact that Kushina's pregnancy was itself secret, Shisui speculated. Correct, the Hokage affirmed. Had the birth gone as planned they would have lived happily as a family, but after the tragedy it was decided that maintaining that secrecy was the safer option. Was the nine tails being sealed in Naruto a matter of convenience? Itachi inquired, simply on account of being a newborn that was close at hand. The Hokage gave a headshake. Given Minato's abilities and personality, he never would have had such a concern. This was perhaps the thing that puzzled me the most about that night. Why did Minato and Kushina opt to seal the nine tails in their son? They would not have done so without a compelling reason. Perhaps fighting someone as strong as Madara could have led Lord Fourth to conclude that the village would need the nine tails' power to combat them, Itachi suggested. I have been thinking that as well, said the Hokage. The theory really does fit, Shisui remarked. Still, we should search those safe houses for evidence. Itachi gave a nod. Yeah, we should mobilize a force to do it. No, the Hokage cut him off. As I said earlier, everything we've said here stays between us. That will slow the process down dramatically, Itachi answered. But we shall see it through however we must. You misunderstand, said the Hokage. I do not mean for you two alone to handle this. I have already sent for trusted allies who are already in the know. They've been traveling for quite some time, but once they return I'll be looking for them to work with you. That's understandable, said Shisui. Itachi said, might we add a few more people? The Hokage thought over the suggestion for a time. I might consider a candidate or two if you suggest them. But I must stress the need for secrecy, keep this information between as few people as possible. Itachi nodded, mentally organizing the details. He had a lot to think about in the interim. Itachi thought about things as he strolled through his house's hallways. He and Shisui were waiting for the Hokage's allies to assemble for the time being. Itachi was thinking about who he wanted to include in the group. His mother entered through the front door, diverting his attention from his thoughts. Itachi found it odd to see her wearing a shinobi outfit with a flak jacket and an armband with the military police forces emblem instead of a dress and apron. Makoto said, "Itachi," while removing her sandals. "How was your day?" "Fine," said the youthful clan head. "Had a meeting with the Hokage earlier." Makoto said, "What about?" "I'm afraid I can't say," Itachi answered. Makoto gave a nod. "I see. But forget that," Itachi remarked. "How was your first day on the job?" "Bit of culture shock, coming back after not being active for so long," Makoto replied. She moved by Itachi and made her way to the kitchen, saying, "But I'm adjusting, and I think this will work out well. Now, would you like anything to eat? I could probably whip up something quick." Itachi trailed behind her. "No, I don't think so." "Okay," Makoto answered. "I'll just make something for myself then." Itachi nodded, his thoughts reverting to what he had been thinking about before Makoto came home. He started to turn in the direction of the door, but he paused when an idea struck him. "Mother, you are around the same age as the fourth Hokage, correct?" Makoto cocked an eyebrow as she glanced over her shoulder at Itachi. "Where's this coming from?" "Just humor me, mother," Itachi answered. Makoto responded, "Fine," and reached into a cupboard. "Yes, he and I were in the academy at around the same time. Can't say I knew him all that well though. He graduated a few years early and we ran in different social circles. I was close friends with his eventual wife though." "Kushina?" Itachi inquired. Makoto stopped and picked up a box of fruit. She turned to Itachi gently. "How do you know that name?" "It's not like it was some secret," Itachi said. "No, but I wouldn't expect younger generations to know that," Makoto answered. "No more than I'd expect someone my age to know who the first Hokage's wife was." For a long, the mother and son stood there, gazing at one another. Makoto said, "Itachi," setting the package down and leaned against the counter. "What are you angling for? You are not one to ask questions on a lark." "I'd heard an interesting story about the fourth from an older colleague that I didn't quite believe," Itachi said. "I thought if I could learn more about his background and personality that it might shed some light on the matter." Makoto looked at her older son, obviously unconvinced. Itachi gazed back, unsure of what to do next. The sound of the front door opening diverted both of them. Still on his sandals, Sasuke dashed inside the kitchen. "Mother, can I have some money? I want to go the senbei shop." Makoto was shocked by what she saw. "Okay, Sasuke, but what are you so excited about?" "Naruto's here to come try it out," cried Sasuke. Itachi questioned, "Where is Naruto?" Sasuke gestured to the entrance door. "He's waiting outside." Makoto and Itachi looked at each other, then followed Sasuke. When they went to the front door and opened it, Naruto was there. Naruto said, "Hi," with a feeble hand gesture. Sasuke replied, "You don't have to be so awkward," as he approached his companion. "What, I've never been to friend's house," exclaimed Naruto. "I don't know what to do." Makoto started laughing, which grew louder and louder until it became a full-fledged laugh. Naruto said, "What's so funny, lady?" "Hey, loser, that's my mother you're talking to," Sasuke cautioned. Naruto said, "Oh, right. Sorry. Mrs. Uchiha." Makoto regained her composure. "I'm sorry, you just reminded me of someone I used to know." Naruto said, obviously unsure of what to do in this situation. "Mother, how about I go ahead and take them to the senbei shop," Itachi said. "I'll pay for them." "Okay, Itachi, go ahead," Makoto replied. Sasuke said, "Let's go then," and turned to head for the street. The younger Uchiha was followed by Naruto. "Bet it's not going to be better than Ichiraku." "Just try it," Sasuke answered. Itachi followed the two, grinning and shaking his head. As he moved away, he heard his mother sigh and mutter to herself. "Maybe you were right about them after all, old friend." She was already shutting the door when Itachi looked back at her. He decided to ignore that for the time being and carry on going with the younger boys. Only a few corners away, next to the Uchiha compound entrance, stood the senbei shop. Itachi told Naruto, "Here we are," as they approached the shop. "This doesn't seem like much," said the Uzumaki. "It's just a corner store. And Ichiraku's just a food stall," said Sasuke. Yeah, but the ramen is incredible, Naruto said. Clearly frustrated, Sasuke raised his arms in the air. Then how about you wait until you've tried the food here? Fine, fine, Naruto grinned. Sasuke hesitated for a moment before returning the expression. Itachi laughed and shook his head, but the boys were too preoccupied to see him. Someone inside the store said, "Well, what do we have here?" Chiaki, the proprietor of the store, emerged. "Hello Sasuke, Itachi. This a friend of yours?" Sasuke gave a nod. "Yes, this is Naruto. I brought him here to try some of your famous senbei." The store owner asked, momentarily surprised, "Naruto. I see, so you were the one that got kidnapped." Naruto said, "You heard about that, mister?" "Yes," Chiaki replied. "I'm deeply ashamed that the perpetrators were of the Uchiha clan." "Don't worry about it," Naruto smiled. "It's not like you did it yourself or anything." Chiaki grinned. "I see you're a good-natured kid, makes you a good match for little Sasuke. Very well, I'll let you have 2 free senbei. One is a sample, one is an apology on the behalf of the Uchiha clan." Naruto yelled, "Awesome," as he and Sasuke trailed Chiaki into the shop. Itachi, left on the street by himself, watched the 3 leave. He turned to face the compound entrance and noticed 2 individuals go through it. "I guess they didn't need me to give them money after all." "Oh, Shisui, Izumi, hello." "Oh, Itachi," Shisui answered. "What are you doing out here?" Itachi poked the senbei shop with his thumb. "Sasuke brought a friend to check out the shop here. I told them I'd come with them." "A friend?" inquired Shisui. "Who might that be?" Before Itachi could respond, the store's door opened and Naruto emerged with a box of senbei, which are little rice crackers coated in a variety of sweet flavors. "I thought Chiaki said he was giving you 2 free senbei," Itachi replied. "How did you get that many?" Naruto smiled. He nibbled into a senbei and remarked, "Yeah, he said 2, but once we actually got in there he started to give me more and more." Itachi could see Chiaki's wife yelling at him through the store window, perhaps for giving away so much free food. "So you're Naruto," Shisui stated as she walked up to the young Uzumaki. "We've met before, though you were unconscious the last time." Naruto questioned, "What do you mean by that?" "I was on the team that saved you from the kidnappers," Shisui clarified. "Oh, well, thank you," Naruto said. Izumi slid up next Itachi as the 2 carried on their conversation. She said, "That's him. The one who," Itachi said, "Yes," before she could finish. Izumi's attitude was slightly contemptuous as she observed Naruto. "How long before he leaves?" The young Kunoichi was pulled aside by Itachi. "You don't have to be so contemptful of him, you know. He isn't the fox." Izumi said, "I know," with a remorseful expression. "But I look at him and I think of the 9 tails, think of it killing my father." "It wasn't his fault," Itachi declared. "I know," Izumi said once more. Suddenly, Sasuke was standing beside them, pulling at Izumi's sleeve. He glared at the Kunoichi and asked, "Do you hate Naruto too?" "What? No," was Izumi's reply. "I barely know the kid." Sasuke turned and walked back to join Naruto and Shisui. "Good," he murmured. There was a pause before Itachi laughed. "I'm sorry, it seems that Sasuke has become rather protective of Naruto." "I guess I understand that," Izumi answered. "By the way," Itachi remarked, "what were you doing with Shisui?" "Oh, I asked him to help me file a transfer request," Izumi replied. "I want to join the regular forces." "I see," Itachi said, turning to look at Shisui, who was grinning and teasing Naruto. "That's good to hear." "Well, it's getting late," said Izumi. "My mom is probably waiting for me." "Yeah, you're right," Itachi answered. "We should probably finish up for the day." With a nod, Izumi started to move deeper inside the compound. "See you later then." Itachi shouted, "All right," and moved to join Shisui, Sasuke, and Naruto. "I think it's time for everyone to head home for the day." Naruto said, "Ah, come on," and then he bit into another senbei. "No, Itachi's right," Shisui replied. "You kids still have homework to do in school and training tomorrow, right?" "I guess," Naruto said. "But," Sasuke remarked, alternating between the 2 older Uchiha, "I don't want Naruto to go home alone." Shisui questioned, "Is that all?" "Don't worry, Sasuke, I'll make sure he gets home safe." Naruto asked, "Don't I get a say in this?" Shisui looked at the youthful Uzumaki. "How about I help you for your next big exam? Whenever you need it." Naruto hesitated, considering the suggestion, although he didn't appear very excited about it. He grinned and held up a fist, saying, "Fine." Before escorting Naruto out of the Uchiha complex, Shisui gave him a fist bump. Itachi said, "You ready to go, Sasuke?" After a brief period of silence during which he saw Naruto and Shisui vanish from view, Sasuke turned around. "Yeah." As they headed home, Itachi watched his younger sibling. After their father's murder and kidnapping, it was clear how deeply Sasuke had bonded with Naruto. For Itachi, the fact that he showed such concern for another person was encouraging in and of itself. However, he also sensed that Sasuke would go too far with it and consequently take some drastic measures. Itachi inhaled deeply. Although handling the coup had been difficult, it had also been a single objective. Itachi felt as though the challenges of the upcoming weeks were pushing him in different directions, perhaps even in opposition to each other. Itachi asked the Hokage, "You called for us?" He and Shisui were waiting in his office for the most recent update on their investigation into the masked Madara. "Yes," said the village chief. "I sent out Kakashi and Guy to summon those allies I mentioned. I recently received word of their success. We should expect their arrival in any moment." Shisui asked, "May we ask who they are?" "You'll see soon enough," the Hokage answered. The door was knocked on. "Enter," Sarutobi yelled. Danzo entered the room. Itachi and Shisui both cast a sidelong glance at the Hokage, questioning the notion that he was their ally. The village chief scowled. "What are you doing, Danzo? You have no business here so far as I'm aware of. It has been brought to my attention that the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was in the Uchiha compound recently," the spies remarked. "Given the recent incident involving him, I find this concerning." The Uchiha clan head caught the Hokage's attention. "What's the story?" "It was my younger brother," Itachi replied. "He is friends with Naruto and brought him to visit one of our local shops." Sarutobi laughed. "Hear that, Danzo? Just an innocent playdate between children. You are being too paranoid on this issue." Danzo scowled. "Members of the Uchiha have already acted on their own to try and take control of the Nine Tails. We cannot risk the tailed beast being taken from the village." "Naruto is a child, Danzo," the Hokage answered. "Not a weapon. Treat him as such." "Normal children do not carry demons capable of destroying the village within them," Danzo replied. "There should be a measure of caution here." In an attempt to attract the attention of the two senior politicians, Shisui moved forward and raised his hand. "My lords, I will personally see to Naruto's safety. If anything happens to him, please hold me responsible." Danzo gave the Uchiha a fierce look. "I don't find much solace in your promises." "I disagree, Danzo," the Hokage said. "Shisui is trustworthy and one of the village's finest jonin. If he wishes to take protecting Naruto as his duty, then I think we should allow him." Shisui bowed to the chief of the village. "Thank you, Lord Hokage." Danzo let out a sigh. "I accept this under protest, Hiruzen." "The decision has already been made, Danzo," the Hokage answered. "There is nothing for you to accept or protest." "HMPH, Danzo said as he turned and left the office. Itachi did not speak until the spymaster had shut the door behind him. "Are you sure about this, Shisui?" "It's fine," said the other Uchiha. "I've taken a liking to the kid, so it's no burden to me." "Then I consider the matter settled," the Hokage declared. "Insofar as I think there is any matter at all, at least. In any case, that was not who I was referring to." "I would hope so," Itachi answered. After responding with a nod, the Hokage's expression abruptly changed, as if something had just gone wrong. The village chief pivoted in his chair to look out the window. "Jiraiya, why can't you come in the normal way?" Itachi peered out the window and saw a big man sitting atop a gigantic toad, dressed in scarlet and with a mane of white hair. The Uchiha was astounded that a figure like Magnificent could have eluded him thus far. Reaching out, the Hokage lifted the window open after unlocking it. The man climbed into the office after getting off the toad. "Sorry, Sarutobi-sensei," he apologized. "I just couldn't resist." "Sensei," inquired Shisui, "so then, are you Master Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin, the third Hokage's students?" Jiraiya stood on one foot and held out an outstretched hand to Shisui while grinning broadly. "Yes, you have guessed correctly, young shinobi. My name is known far and wide, for the ladies scream it wherever I go. I am the great toad sage of the Hidden Leaf Village, the one, the only, Master Jiraiya." Itachi remained motionless, raising an eyebrow in astonishment. This man, whomever he was, appeared to be less of a shinobi and more of a fool and street entertainer. Stop it with the theatrics, Jiraiya, the Hokage commanded. Where is Tsunade? She should be coming. Right about now, Jiraiya said, gesturing to the door. A series of loud knocks rattled it as it was almost in line, but before anyone could react, it exploded. Even Itachi, who usually ignored such things, could not help but be sucked in by the woman's enormous chest and blonde hair as she entered. The young Uchiha swiftly regained his composure and focused on the young, dark-haired woman who trailed behind the first. She seemed to be about Kakashi's age. Enter the second Sannin, exclaimed Jiraiya in a theatrical manner. The Slug Princess herself, the world's greatest medical ninja and most beautiful woman, Lady Tsunade. When Jiraiya was introduced, Tsunade sighed. With an obvious intention of ignoring her fellow Sannin, she inquired, "What's this about, Sarutobi-sensei? Why did you send those two kids to find me?" "There was an incident recently," the Hokage replied, "involving the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and a pair of Uchiha clan members who had gone rogue." Jiraiya's attitude abruptly shifted. With a more somber tone, he inquired, "Was it resolved?" Itachi said, "Hold on," gesturing to the young lady who had entered with Tsunade. "Should she be present for this?" Tsunade gave the young Uchiha a fierce look. "Shizune is my trusted assistant. If I can hear this, so can she." Itachi said, "Very well," dropping his hand. The Toad Sage caught the Hokage's attention. He looked to Itachi and gestured for him to continue explaining. "To answer your question, yes it was. But new information came to light during the investigation, which is the reason why I have called the two of you here." "Yes," said the head of the Uchiha clan. "Shisui and I, along with my father, who was killed during the mission, tracked the rogue members of our clan. When we found them they revealed that they had been inspired by Madara Uchiha to try and take control of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Not by old stories of Madara either, but by a real, living person claiming to be him. We have taken to referring to this person as the Masked Madara, as it is not confirmed that they were in fact Madara, and the two rogue ninjas said that he wore a mask that covered his entire face save for a Sharingan in his right eye. After further questioning I discovered that this person had also claimed to have used the Nine Tails to attack the village several years ago, only to be defeated by the fourth Hokage. And so you called us here to help find if there is any truth to this story," Jiraiya said. He turned to face his former partner and said, "Needless to say I'm interested in learning more about the fate of my prized student. Tsunade, do you have an opinion on this?" Tsunade inhaled deeply as she thought about the situation. "Frankly, the only reason I've come back to the village at all is because you asked me to, Sarutobi-sensei. Otherwise I would rather be on my way. I'm not too keen on taking on any missions after all this time either. Still, I realize how important this could be. If you have some specific tasks that I can do that others can't, I'll do them. Otherwise I plan on leaving." The Hokage stated, "I do have a few things that I had in mind for you. First, there are a couple of civilians who were collateral damage during the kidnapping incident. Both were placed under a powerful genjutsu and have been in comas since. I would like you to see what you can do for them." Tsunade answered, "I won't promise anything, but I'll take a look. Shizune, why don't you go ahead to the hospital and do some preliminary work?" The dark-haired woman said, "Right away, Lady Tsunade," and then she left the office. Tsunade questioned, "There was a second matter?" "Yes," the Hokage replied. "I would like you to research possible methods that Madara could have used to survive to the present day." The top medical ninja in the world thought about the idea and nodded. "I have heard of some forbidden techniques for extending one's lifespan. Most of them are carefully guarded secrets, naturally, but I'll see what I can dig up." "Please do," said the Hokage. "In the meantime I would like for Jiraiya, Itachi, and Shisui to begin searching for the fourth Hokage's hidden safe houses tomorrow." "You think that something might have happened at one of them?" Jiraiya inquired. Itachi gave a nod. "That's our leading theory at the moment. You were the fourth Hokage's teacher, correct? Do you have any insight that might help us locate them?" Jiraiya touched his chin with a hand. With his teleportation technique Minato could afford to put his safe houses as far from the beaten path as he liked. Therefore we can assume that they are likely to be in remote locations away from any well-known routes. Furthermore, he was a meticulous planner who prepared for as many eventualities as he could think of. He would have locations that were meant for storing weapons and supplies, others where persons who needed to be taken into protective custody could be kept long-term, and likely some to which he could redirect large-scale attacks that could damage the village. He probably had some set aside for scenarios I'm not even thinking of at the moment. "That's a good starting point," said Shisui. We can use factors conducive to those needs to triangulate likely locations. Yes, said Jiraiya. I think I will look over a map of the surrounding areas tonight to see if I can intuit anything. Good, said the Hokage. Just don't get caught up in your normal research. The remark made Jiraiya wince. Oh, come on, Sarutobi-sensei, I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm taking this mission more seriously than any I've had in years, I'll have you know. I haven't given you a mission in years, the Hokage shot back. With a groan, Tsunade turned to leave the office. She went without waiting for the Hokage's word, saying, since there doesn't seem to be any further need of me here, I'll go ahead to the hospital. Very well then, Sarutobi remarked as his former student slammed the door behind her. I suppose we can adjourn for now. I will leave it to you to coordinate this investigation. Inform me once you find anything of substance. One last thing, Itachi said. Master Jiraiya, you were the fourth Hokage's teacher. Were you aware of his wife's status? The Toad Sage cast a sidelong glance at his former instructor. The Hokage nodded and said, so you told them, huh? To answer your question, and what I assume your first follow-up would be, yes, Jiraiya replied. More than that, Minato and Kushina named me the boy's godfather. If I may ask, Shisui said, why haven't you had a greater role in Naruto's life? Jiraiya let out a sigh. Look at me, do I really look like someone who should be raising a kid? I'm a free spirit, I need to have the chance to travel, do my research, and write my books. Maybe if someday he becomes a shinobi of some interesting talent, I'll take the chance to bring him under my wing. But until then there's no place for a kid in my life. Itachi took a time to examine the Sannin. He felt that there was more to Jiraiya's explanation, even though there might have been some truth to it. Perhaps he was hiding some more serious suffering behind that tale. Maybe he was so saddened by the loss of his beloved pupil. Itachi questioned, who all knows? As for here, Jiraiya replied. Tsunade knows as well, along with a trio of elders who advise Sarutobi-sensei. Beyond that, I think one of Minato's old students is the only other person. What was his name again? Kakashi, Itachi asked, referring to the only fourth Hokage pupil he could think of. That is correct, the Hokage said on behalf of his former pupil. In fact, Minato had assigned Kakashi as Kushina's bodyguard during her pregnancy. Beyond those already mentioned, I cannot think of anyone. I suppose Kushina could have told one of her old friends. We tried to caution her against such behavior but she was never one to meekly do as she was told. Yes, that Kushina was a real firecracker, Jiraiya grinned. Minato sure knew how to pick them, just like his teacher. Itachi thought to himself, old friends, recalling his mother. Is that Danzo character one of the elders who knows? Shisui inquired. The Hokage said, yes, why do you ask? As he considered his answer, Shisui inhaled deeply. Not sure, there's just something I didn't like about him. Danzo can be harsh, and I've had to rein him in at times, the Hokage retorted. But he does what he believes is best for the village. Said Shishi. Still don't like it, I'll keep my eyes open. Itachi studied his comrade, curious about the thoughts of the senior Uchiha. Sasuke heard a female voice remark, hey, Naruto, as he returned to the classroom. He had gone outside to use the restroom during their lunch break. Naruto said, hi, with an awkward wave and a smile. It was obvious that he had no idea how to handle the attention from the two happy girls in front of him. Even though Sakura and Ino were facing away from him, Sasuke could tell by their hair. With her face uncomfortably close to Naruto's, Ino leaned on the desk and asked, so, do you have a favorite place you like to go, Naruto? Well, the Uzumaki said. There is this ramen place that I really love, but it's closed right now. Sakura imitated Ino's body language by leaning close. Do you think you could take us there when it reopens? Maybe bring Sasuke along? Maybe, Naruto said, twiddling his fingers uncomfortably. Sasuke entered the scene and inquired, what's going on here? Sakura and Ino both entirely changed their focus to the Uchiha guy. Hey, Sasuke, said the former. How are you doing? As Naruto rested his head on his desk and put his arms around his face to cover his flushed cheeks, Sasuke said, fine, staring beyond the girls. But what are you doing? Ino stated, we're just trying to know Naruto better in an exaggerated, emotional tone. Is that so bad? Just leave, Sasuke replied. You're both annoying. HMPH, Ino said, theatrically flicking her hair before turning to leave. Sakura paused, her gaze darting between Sasuke and Naruto before she also departed. Sasuke let out a sigh. I don't get them. Another student asked. You don't? Shikamaru was seated on the row in front of Naruto when Sasuke turned to gaze at him. Sasuke questioned, what do you mean? After shaking his head, Shikamaru gestured for Sasuke to approach. The young Uchiha came over and knelt by the other boy. Shikamaru whispered, do you not realize how many of the girls in this class are obsessed with you? Can't say I've really thought about it, Sasuke said. Well, now that you've got an obvious friend in Naruto, they think they can use him to get to you, Shikamaru said. Sasuke let out a sigh. I don't like the idea of them using Naruto. Shikamaru laughed. It's not like you can stop them. Girls, man, they're a real drag. Said Sasuke. Hey, can I talk to you out in the hall? Shikamaru appeared to be about to order the Uchiha to go, but he changed his mind. Fine, just make it quick. Sasuke got up and left the classroom. Before doing the same, Shikamaru executed several neck rolls. When they were outside in the hallway, Shikamaru said, so, what do you want? To make sure they were alone, Sasuke peered down the hall in both directions. You're smart, Shikamaru. You like to act like you're a lazy good-for-nothing, but you picked up on the fact that's something up with the way the adults are treating Naruto just like I did. Only I think you had less information to work with than I did. If you mean the kidnapping, I just noticed that there didn't seem to be a motive, nothing big, Shikamaru said. But like you already said, I don't have a lot of information. For all I know there's a perfectly good explanation and I just don't know about it. We didn't tell you that the people who took him were from my clan, Sasuke replied. Shikamaru started to respond, but stopped himself. Okay, that is weird, he acknowledged. Great, now you've got my brain working on a problem, this is such a drag. Go ahead, you said you had more information. Sasuke questioned, have your parents ever talked to you about Naruto? Shikamaru came back and asked, what does that have to do with it? Just answer, Sasuke demanded. Shikamaru let out a sigh. As he reflected, he put a palm to his chin and said, fine. I remember, sometime around when we first started at the academy, I asked my dad why other people seemed to be avoiding Naruto. He told me to spend some time with him and decide for myself. Sasuke questioned, what did you decide? That he's a pretty normal kid, Shikamaru remarked. Kind of a troublemaker. Sometimes fun to hang out with, other times a drag. Nothing unusual. Then your parents were more lenient than others, Sasuke remarked. Some of the class bullies recently started calling Naruto a weird nickname, Foxboy. Foxboy? Asked Shikamaru. Sasuke gave a nod. I asked them where they got the name from and they said their parents. Shikamaru questioned, why would parents come up with such a childish nickname? Sasuke gave a shrug. I don't know, maybe they heard a part of something and then turned it into a nickname. But I'm convinced that there's something going on with Naruto that's causing most of the adults to treat him differently. Just look at how the teachers didn't even acknowledge his absence. That was odd, Shikamaru acknowledged. Okay, you've convinced me, but what do you want to do about it? Sasuke looked for eavesdroppers once more in the hallways. I think my brother knows something. I've asked him about it multiple times, but he keeps lying to me. We should find a time to tail him and figure out what's going on. That sounds like a total drag, Shikamaru grumbled, but, he said, Naruto's a friend, or at least kind of one. And you have gotten me all curious. When do you want to do this? My brother works for the Anbu, Sasuke clarified. I'll tell you when I figured out more details so we can follow him. Shikamaru said, you want us to follow an Anbu member? That isn't exactly easy. Just think of it as training, Sasuke shot back. Shikamaru let out a sigh. Fine, but if we get caught I'm saying it was your idea. This is going to be such a drag, I can feel it. That's all fine by me, Sasuke answered. Sasuke and Naruto were making their way to the Uzumaki's small training site through the woods behind the academy. Naruto remarked, so you see, as they strolled. I'd wedged an eraser up at the top of the door, so that when that boring sub came walking out of the teacher's lounge it fell right on his head. He laughed at his own joke. Sasuke said absently, sounds cool, as he was preoccupied. Observing his friend's condition, Naruto inquired, what's up? Sasuke cast a sidelong glance. I don't know. Just feels like someone is watching. Naruto followed Sasuke's gaze and asked, is it those bullies again? We can just beat the crap out of them again. Sasuke responded, no, I don't think it's them, disregarding the fact that he was the only one who had successfully defeated those bullies in combat. When he glanced around again, he saw a man towering over them and almost leapt out of his skin. As Sasuke looked at them, Naruto questioned, "Who the hell are you?" With the black cloak hiding the rest of their body and the animal mask covering their face, they appeared to be Anbu. A hand reached out from the cloak and took hold of Naruto's shoulder. They stated, "Naruto Uzumaki, you need to come with me," in a flat, manly voice. "You're to be taken into protective custody. Hokage's orders." With a shrug, Naruto said, "I'm not going anywhere," and dismissed the Anbu. "I'm afraid that's not an option," the man with the clock remarked. Reasserting his hold, he pushed Naruto forward and turned him around violently. "You heard him, he's not going with you." Sasuke scowled as he reached out and placed the Anbu's wrist in a vice grasp, or as much of one as a child could on an adult. The Anbu hesitated, and then Shisui materialized behind him, almost as if he had been there the entire time. The older Uchiha smiled and put a hand on the Anbu's shoulder. "Hold, friend," he said. "I think there's been a mix-up here." Sasuke saw the smile's lack of sincerity, as if it were limited to the lower portion of his face. His eyes were not reached by it. The Anbu turned to face Shisui, who blinked and used his Sharingan. Although the man's face was hidden under the mask, his hesitancy was evident from his body language. "My apologies. I'll be on my way." "Very good," Shisui said, maintaining a smile that fell short of his Sharingan-bearing eyes. Shisui's cloak unsettled as the Anbu broke free from his hold. The cloth billowed around the Anbu member, revealing the man's naked, featureless shoulder to Sasuke. Then they were gone, running off and jumping up into the tree limbs. "Sasuke," Shisui stated when the three of them were by themselves. Deactivating his Sharingan, he turned to face the two children. "I think you should take Naruto home with you. Tell your mother I thought it was for the best." "Okay," said the younger Uchiha. "But what is happening? First the kidnapping and now this. What aren't the adults telling us?" "Yeah," Naruto repeated, vigorously shaking his head. Shisui inhaled deeply. "I don't know how much I can tell you, Sasuke, and I don't know how much Itachi or your parents may have said. But I think you've figured out at this point that there's something deeper going on with Naruto." With a sparkle in his eyes, Naruto questioned, "What is it, Uncle Shisui? Am I super awesome or something?" Shisui laughed. The older Uchiha crouched down to face the two boys and said, "Not so fast, kid, and don't call me uncle, I'm not even 10 years older than you. I won't tell the two of you right now, but I'm going to get together with Itachi and hash it out with him. I can't promise to tell you everything, but I will promise that everything I say will be true. So in return, I want you two to promise that you'll go to Sasuke's place and stay there, alright?" "I promise," Naruto answered. Sasuke looked first at his clansman and then at his friend. "I promise," he repeated after pausing for a second. Shisui responded, "Good," and got to his feet. "I've got places to be right now, so you two should get going." "Wait," said Sasuke. "Was that man really an Anbu member? He didn't have a tattoo on his shoulder like Itachi does." "So you noticed that too? You really are as talented as your brother," Shisui said. "I told you I wouldn't lie, so I won't. I don't believe that was a real Anbu member, which is all the more reason why you should go to your mother. Tell her about it, in fact. That should help her understand the situation." After inhaling deeply, Sasuke nodded. "Come on," Naruto urged, pulling Sasuke's sleeve. Sasuke turned back to Shisui after glancing at his comrade, but the elder Uchiha had vanished as if he had never been there. After turning around, Sasuke and Naruto began to walk back to the academy. They soon emerged from the forest and entered one of the training grounds behind the structure. As they rounded a corner, Sasuke stopped. "You go ahead." Naruto questioned, "What do you mean? Uncle Shisui said we should go straight to your house." "Yeah, but I've got something to take care of," Sasuke answered. "Besides, we know that they want you and not me. You know the way to my house, so go." Naruto began to leave but then halted. "Are you sure?" Sasuke yelled, "Yes." And Naruto began to move at last. He shouted, "And run!" And the Uzumaki started to run. Sasuke saw the substitute teacher in the lobby as he entered the academy's front door. "Excuse me, have you seen Shikamaru?" "The Nara kid?" inquired the instructor. "I think I saw him go up to the roof with another student. Why?" "Just wondering," Sasuke said, making his way to the stairs. The instructor shook his head. "Kids these days." As soon as he was out of the substitute's line of sight, Sasuke began to run, speeding up several stories to reach the roof. On the way up, he almost bowled over a female classmate, but he didn't look to see who it was. When he eventually reached the roof access, he flung open the door. As he stepped onto the roof, he heard Shikamaru inquire, "Who is making all that racket?" "Yeah, you're ruining the peace and quiet that should come with a good snack," Shoji said. Sasuke turned to find the two lying on the ground. Shikamaru was gazing up at the sky, and Shoji was holding a bag of chips. "Shikamaru," Sasuke remarked as he approached them. "Something's happened, we need to go to the Hokage's office, right now." The child from Nara sat up. "It this about?" Sasuke gave a nod. Shikamaru responded, "Okay, give me a minute," as he stood up. "This is going to be a drag, but I told you I'd help." Shoji gave up eating. "Hold on, what's happening?" "None of your business," Sasuke answered. "Hold on, man," said Shikamaru. "Shoji's my best friend, no need to treat him like that." Just as Sasuke opened his mouth to respond, he heard footsteps behind him. He noticed Hinata standing there when he glanced over his shoulder. She questioned, "Did something happen to Naruto?" Sasuke questioned, "How did you know?" Hinata gestured to the staircase behind her. The Hyuga girl blushed and looked away as she twiddled her fingers, saying, "Well, you nearly ran me over. On the stairs, I mean. And with some of the things that have been happening with you two lately, well. I'm sorry if I assumed." "No, you were right," Sasuke answered. "Naruto and I were out in the woods when someone tried to kidnap him again. They were pretending to be Anbu, claimed that the Hokage wanted to bring him into protective custody." The other three pupils let out a gasp. Shikamaru questioned, "Really, again?" "Don't leave us in suspense," Shoji remarked. "What happened next?" "One of my clansmen showed up," Sasuke said. "He got the fake Anbu to leave and then told me and Naruto to go back to my house and tell my mother what happened. Naruto's on his way there now, but Shisui's probably going to report to the Hokage." Shikamaru got to his feet. "And you want us to eavesdrop on them?" Sasuke gave a nod. "I'm coming with you," Shoji declared. Shikamaru questioned, "Are you sure?" "Yeah," Shoji answered. "I'm not letting my best friend go without me and I want to help Naruto too." "So do I," Hinata firmly said. Shikamaru looked across at Sasuke. "It's a drag, but we're not going to stop them." Sasuke turned to face the joyful group of four that he had just joined. "All right then, let's go." Itachi marched into the Hokage's office, arriving at the behest of an urgent summon conveyed to him via another member of the Anbu. The village chief sat at his desk, and a quick glance around the room alerted Itachi that they were not alone. With them were Shisui and Itachi's fellow Anbu member, Kakashi. "Did something happen?" Itachi said as he slammed the door behind him. "It must be important if you called me in right before I was to head out with Jiraiya." The Hokage nodded. "Yes. Personally, I would like to use the private briefing room for this conversation, but unfortunately a couple of my advisors are using it currently. I'll go ahead and cut to the heart of the matter. There's been another attempt to kidnap Naruto Uzumaki." "Again?" Itachi asked. "Yes," said the village chief. "For it to happen so soon after the previous incident, I cannot help but feel that the incidents are related in some fashion." Itachi's gaze darted between the other shinobi in the space. "What happened?" Sasuke and Naruto were walking through the woods near the academy after classes finished, Shisui stated. "I was swinging by to check up on them before leaving to meet up with you and Master Jiraiya for our mission." Kakashi questioned, "Why were you doing that?" "One of the village elders expressed concern about Naruto being in the Uchiha compound recently, and I offered to serve as his protector," Shisui said. "I don't think that he believed me, but I was being serious." "Continue with your story," the Hokage said. "Right, sorry, Lord Hokage," Shisui answered. "When I arrived on the scene there was a man wearing an Anbu mask and cloak, who was telling Naruto that the Hokage had ordered him to be taken into protective custody." Itachi looked at the village chief. "I gave no such order," the Hokage declared. "I figured that was the case," Shisui remarked. "Once I made my presence known he gave up quickly enough. I managed to catch a glimpse of him under his cloak and he had no Anbu tattoo on his shoulder. That led me to believe that this person was impersonating an ANBU, so I came and reported it to Lord Hokage." Itachi questioned, "Where is Naruto now?" "I told him and Sasuke to run back to your house and tell your mother about it, Itachi," the other Uchiha replied. "My plan was for her to protect them while I reported on the situation here." "And you've done a good job in doing so," the Hokage remarked. "But, I would ask that you leave now." Shisui's expression instantly changed to one of surprise. "Are you certain, Lord Hokage?" "Yes, someone should accompany Jiraiya on your mission," the village chief said. "Besides, this is a matter for my trusted Anbu." Shisui paused and looked around the room at the other people. "Very well, Lord Hokage," he remarked as he passed Itachi on his way out the door. Itachi held out on asking his question till his companion had shut the door. Do we really believe that there's someone in this village who is brave enough to impersonate a member of the Anbu? It might be the case, Kakashi remarked. Or it could be that he's a member of Root. Itachi glanced curiously at his tutor. A member of what? Root, Kakashi said once more. It's a special unit of the Anbu. Its mere existence is a closely guarded secret. Itachi questioned, special how? How have I never heard of it? If Anbu is meant to deal with black ops, the Hokage said, then Root is a step beyond that, the kind of tasks the village cannot afford to be associated with. It is a special section of the Anbu that operates outside the normal command structure. Itachi inquired, how far outside? It does not answer to me directly, the Hokage declared. It is led by Danzo. Itachi said, Danzo? The elder, Danzo? The very same, the Hokage replied. As Itachi took in this information, he began to pace the room. Who all knows about Root? Is it widely known within the Anbu? Kakashi gave a headshake. No, other than you, Tenzo, and myself, members of the Hokage's Anbu are not aware of Root's existence. Generally only those Danzo has attempted to recruit in the past, and he is very particular about who he recruits. Itachi stopped. Danzo attempted to recruit both of you and Tenzo? Me, yes, Kakashi replied. Tenzo's case is more complicated. The Hokage's hesitant face was evident as he intertwined his fingers beneath his chin. Tenzo was raised by Root, he said at last. I will leave it at that for now. Itachi questioned, raised by Root. As in, outside the village. Kakashi gave a nod. It's the best way to ensure loyalty. Drill it in from a young age. Tenzo was one of the few in Root who grew up to have philosophical differences with Danzo, so he left and joined the regular Anbu. And members have a different mark of loyalty than the normal Anbu, the Hokage stated. So they don't have the tattoo on their shoulder, Itachi said. Which means that Shisui's description fits that of a Root member, Kakashi replied. Itachi filed this information in his mind for a period in silence. Then Danzo is a suspect in an attempted kidnapping of Naruto, Itachi remarked. And he has a motive. The Hokage gave a nod. He believes that leaving Naruto where the Uchiha can reach him is too much of a risk. I would not put it past Danzo to go behind my back and attempt to capture Naruto himself if he felt that he could prevent an enemy from doing the same. I would like you two and Tenzo to investigate any possible Root involvement in this incident. Kakashi started to say, very well, Lord, but the Hokage abruptly raised his hand to interrupt. Someone uninvited is coming, Hiruzen cautioned. Itachi briefly believed he sensed a person behind the Hokage, outside the windows. To his astonishment, however, Danzo entered the room through the office door from behind Itachi. Hiruzen, screamed Root's leader, your reluctance to rein the Jinchuriki in has backfired. The Hokage questioned, what are you talking about? Has something happened to Naruto? I've just been informed that the Jinchuriki is at the military police headquarters, Danzo responded. They have him under protective custody, and are refusing to hand him over to anybody. Itachi's calm expression concealed his shock at the situation's irony. While they were speculating that the Root leader was trying to place Naruto in protective custody, Danzo himself entered the picture and complained that the military police were doing the same. He was still taken aback by that. When Naruto and Sasuke arrived at the house and told his mother about another attempted kidnapping, was that his mother's response. The Hokage got to his feet. The village chief moved around his desk and began to leave the room, saying, Itachi, come with me. We're going to see the situation for ourselves. Kakashi, I'd like for you to look into the issue we were discussing before we were interrupted. Yes, Lord Hokage, Kakashi answered. Itachi nodded to his Anbu mentor and followed the village chief out. Shikamaru and Sasuke were scaling the window ledge beneath the Hokage's office. At a lower level, Choji and Hinata were keeping an eye out for patrols. The young Uchiha put his ear to the wall beneath the window and heard, someone uninvited is coming. His eyes widened in terror. Was the Hokage aware of them already? With the intention of telling Shikamaru to cut and run, he turned to face him. But then he heard a door slamming open. Shikamaru muttered, what's happening? It sounds like the Hokage is getting some big news, Sasuke replied. What's a Jinchuriki? Shikamaru gave the Uchiha lad a perplexed look. A what? I don't know, but apparently Naruto's one, Sasuke answered. And he's at the military police headquarters. Oh crap, Shikamaru murmured, slapping his own forehead. This is becoming even more of a drag than I thought it would. Sasuke withdrew from the wall. We need to get the others and head to the headquarters right now. Shikamaru sighed in frustration. Yeah, you're right. The four boys quickly set off together, following Sasuke toward the military police headquarters after the two boys jumped down to where their friends were. Itachi trailed the Hokage as they approached the military police headquarters. On the street outside the building's door, Shikaku Nara approached them. The village chief questioned the Nara clan head, "What's the situation?" Shikaku followed Itachi and the Hokage. "I wish I knew. I just got an alert that something was going on and got here to find that old war hawk Danzo with a small army of Anbu surrounding the place. Where they came from, I have no idea." Itachi noticed people wearing masks and Anbu cloaks as he peered up onto the rooftops of the buildings encircling the police headquarters. He could infer that they belonged to Root. The Hokage questioned, "What about inside the building?" Shikaku responded, "From what I can tell, the police have every entrance under guard. I was able to convince Danzo that, as the Jonin commander, I had a right to negotiate with them and was able to communicate several messages to the chief." The Hokage asked. Her response, "She assured me that Naruto is safe," Shikaku answered. "But she will not allow anyone in the headquarters at this moment." Itachi suggested, "What if Lord Hokage and I go to meet her?" Shikaku pondered this for a while. The Jonin commander turned and gestured to a group of shinobi nearby, saying, "That could work. I'm sure Makoto trusts her own son." When Jun Uchiha emerged from among them, Itachi was taken aback. She said, "You needed something, Lord Shikaku." "I told you, I'm not a lord of anything," the Nara clan head answered. In response, Jun grimaced. "Sorry, sir." Shikaku faced Itachi and the Hokage once more. "I've been using the Uchiha who recently transferred over to the regular forces as messengers. I was hoping that Makoto would be more apt to trust other members of her clan. So far it seems to have smoothed out the process a bit." Sarutobi questioned, "Is Danzo aware of this?" "He is, and he's made his objections clear," Shikaku answered. "But from what I can tell, Makoto has no ill intentions. I don't know what made her take such drastic steps, but I haven't seen a reason to treat her as an enemy or fear of collusion between the Uchiha." Jun, Lord Hokage and Itachi Uchiha would like to meet with the chief. Go inform her of that. After giving a nod, Jun made his way to the military police headquarters entrance. After his clanswoman was out of sight, Itachi asked Shikaku, "What do you think of her?" "Young, eager," the seasoned Jonin answered. "She'll need to get a lot more experience, but I think she has the makings of a fine leaf shinobi." After responding with a nod, Itachi returned his focus to Jun. She was conversing with someone inside the police headquarters while standing at its entrance. After conveying her message, she went back. The young Uchiha replied, the chief would be willing to meet with the Hokage and Lord Itachi as she got closer. "She will be waiting at the back entrance for you." "Good, let's find a quick resolution to this situation," the Hokage declared. He looked across to Shikaku. "Keep an eye on Danzo, and keep an eye out for Kakashi. He's running a very important mission for me." "Kakashi, huh?" asked Shikaku. "I'll be on the lookout." After giving a nod, the Hokage turned to face Itachi. "Let's go then." With a quick glance at Jun, the Uchiha clan head said, "You stay here and help Shikaku with whatever he needs." "Understood, my lord," nodded the young Uchiha woman in response. Itachi followed the Hokage through an alleyway that led to the rear of the police headquarters. He watched the alleged Root members on the rooftops as they began to circle back to the building's rear. Itachi remarked, "Danzo's up to something," after making sure that everyone but the Hokage was out of earshot. "If he believes that the Uchiha threatened to take control of the nine-tailed fox, he'll do whatever he believes necessary to protect the village," Sarutobi said. "I believe that he is being too cynical and untrusting. He has a tendency to assume the worst of others. However, I can't say for certain that I wouldn't take a similar course of action if I thought as he does." "You seem to know him well," Itachi remarked. "We were friends when we were youngsters," the Hokage retorted. "We were both students of Lords First and Second, and over the years we have placed great trust in each other, both with our own lives and with the fate of the village." Itachi remained silent, thinking to himself that Sarutobi must find it difficult to oppose someone he has always considered a friend and ally. The two turned the corner to the rear of the structure, where the headquarters was accessible through a single side door. The Hokage came over and rapped on it. Makoto stuck her head out and slid out when she saw who it was. Itachi was taken aback by her appearance, or more precisely, by her condition. Her left arm's sleeve was ripped, exposing a bloody bandage underneath. Additionally, she had gauze wrapped around her head, with blood tinting the area over her temple. The Hokage asked, clearly concerned, "What happened, Makoto?" The Hokage and Itachi were being studied by the new police chief, whose gaze darted between them. "I hope that your presence here means that I don't have to suspect Lord Hokage," she told her son. The Hokage said, "I promise you, I only want to protect Naruto, just as you do." "We heard from Shisui that there had been another kidnapping attempt," Itachi said. "He told us that he sent Naruto and Sasuke to you." Makoto's expression changed to one of confusion. "Sasuke. When I arrived at the house, Naruto was alone, waiting by the front door. Sasuke wasn't there." Itachi's expression was suddenly filled with confusion. Was there a reason why Sasuke and Naruto had parted ways? Itachi found it difficult to comprehend why his younger brother had grown so possessive of his pal. The Hokage inquired, "What of your injuries?" "Naruto explained to me what happened, with someone pretending to be Anbu to take him away," Makoto said. "I took him inside, tried to give him something to eat, but before we could get to the kitchen a pair of intruders in Anbu masks and cloaks broke into our home. I was barely able to fight them off and protect Naruto. After that I decided to bring him here." As he processed this knowledge, the Hokage nodded. "I see. You did well to protect the boy, and I can't fault you for taking the precautionary measures as you have. But I want to assure you that those Anbu were not acting under my orders." Makoto's expression darkened as she placed a hand on her hip. "Not acting on your orders? They're part of your Anbu." "It's a long story, mother," Itachi remarked. "Suffice to say, there is a subsection of Anbu that we believe to be behind this." Makoto asked, "A subsection? Under whose command?" The gentle ping of a walking stick reverberated through the alley as if in response. "Danzo," the Hokage murmured, looking at his longtime companion. "You're too soft, Hiruzen, as always," the Root Commander remarked. "This is the second time that the Uchiha have attempted to claim the Nine Tails for themselves, clearly they cannot be negotiated with." "Claim," cried Makoto. "I'm trying to protect him, from you, apparently." "Danzo, order your men to stand down," the Hokage gave the order. After a few period of silence, the Root leader let go of his walking staff and allowed it to drop to the floor. "I cannot do that, Hiruzen. I cannot risk a tailed beast being used against the village." The Hokage said, "You don't even know that they're going to use the Nine Tails." In response, "You're just assuming." Itachi felt a sensation of peril he had never encountered before as the two older shinobi gazed at one another for a split second. He decided to use his Sharingan in this environment, just in case. "The Uchiha have already formed plans to instigate a coup before, Hiruzen," Danzo said. "It would be foolish to assume that all of them have let go of those ambitions." "Wait, you knew?" Makoto asked. "Itachi," she exclaimed as she looked at her son and saw that he was not responding. She was ignored by the Uchiha clan head. He was thinking about it, evaluating the circumstances. It was obvious that Danzo was a dangerous zealot in charge of an Anbu unit that appeared to be more devoted to him than the hamlet. He was reminded, in a way, of the circumstances surrounding the coup and the clan, which made him realize that he had to act before it was too late. For a brief moment, Itachi's Sharingan touched Danzo's exposed eye, and in that instant, Itachi used Genjutsu on the Root Commander. Itachi vanished from the illusion and then abruptly appeared behind Danzo, piercing the elder's heart with a sword. The cut leaked blood, which collected at their feet. Danzo said, "So you have made your choice," without sounding strained. "You are talented, boy, there is no doubt about that. I don't know if there's been a Uchiha as gifted as you since Madara. But you have a long way to go before you can insert yourself between Hiruzen and me." Itachi's chest exploded with a sword, causing blood to flow from the wound and gather at their feet. Glancing over his shoulder, the young Uchiha saw another Danzo in a similar sword-wielding stance to Itachi's with the first Danzo. When Itachi saw that the bandages covering one of the elder's eyes had been removed, his eyes grew wide. They were illuminated by a Sharingan. Itachi instantly broke the Genjutsu and found himself back beside Makoto and the Hokage. He fell to his knees, clutching at his unharmed but somehow hurting chest. "Itachi!" Makoto cried as she knelt beside her son. Itachi screamed, Where did you get that?" in a panicked moment, turning on his Mangekyo. Danzo remarked, obviously disregarding Itachi, "Well, Hiruzen, your pet Uchiha just tried to place me under a Genjutsu." Still think you can trust them? I'm standing right here, the Hokage answered. Don't think you can misrepresent what's happening right now. Danzo relaxed his stance and executed many neck rolls. Then it seems we are at an impasse. So it seems, the Hokage remarked. I'll give you one last chance to stand down. Instead of answering, the root leader made a hand gesture while inhaling deeply. The Hokage shouted, "Fire style, Dragon Flame Bomb." Before Itachi even realized the fabled shinobi was making hand signals, the Hokage unleashed a torrent of fierce fire that resembled a dragon and descended upon Danzo. The root leader stopped in mid-breath and leapt into the air, clinging to the nearby building's walls with his chakra. Danzo dodged once more as the flaming beast struck the area where the elder had just stood while the dragon altered its path to follow. The Hokage looked at Danzo, who was still hanging to the walls above them, and said, "Itachi, can you stand?" With his body still experiencing the effects of his genjutsu altercation with Danzo, the young Uchiha attempted to stand up but was unable to regain his equilibrium. Glancing over his shoulder, Itachi saw two root members with their blades drawn coming from the opposite direction. "Company!" exclaimed the Uchiha. "You two, get inside," the Hokage said. Makoto supported her kid as they limped to the entrance by putting his arm around her shoulders. Glancing over his shoulder, Itachi saw the Hokage engaging in a 2-on-1 battle with the root members, disarming them both in a masterful taijutsu demonstration. After the two attackers were repulsed, the professor, a shinobi, produced two shadow clones to protect their backs and withdrew via the doorway with the mother and boy. Makoto let go of Itachi and lowered the emergency barricade to stop forced entry after the three of them were securely inside. "I didn't think Danzo would act so brazenly against you, Lord Hokage," Itachi replied. The Hokage said, "He's plotted against me in the past," while straightening his attire. "Though he's never been this direct." Makoto glanced questioningly at the village chief. "And you allow this man to remain in a position of influence?" The Hokage hesitated before answering, and his brow furrowed. "I've never doubted his loyalty to the village," he answered at last. "I'm well aware that I've given him too long of a leash at times, but he's often taken up the tasks that I was unwilling to do myself. Would one of those tasks have been wiping out our clan if we rebelled?" Makoto said. "I would have exhausted all other options first," the Hokage answered. Makoto looked at her kid. "I suppose you were the reason they knew about the coup." "In part," Itachi answered. Makoto asked, "Were you also behind your father's change of heart?" "Shisui, actually," Itachi replied. The matriarch of the Uchiha family sighed. "I don't want to believe it, but I have to at this point." The Hokage questioned, "Now that you know the full story, what will you do?" Makoto thought over her answer for a moment. "If the village leadership already knew what we were planning, then we were doomed from the start no matter what we did. I can't say that I'm happy about it, but we've come too far and lost too much to turn back now. And I have to admit, I do think that the clan as a whole is in a better place now than it was before. So I'll go along with your plans for now." Itachi responded, "Thank you, mother," and got to his feet. "In any case, Danzo is a common enemy here." "That he is," Makoto said. "Will he try to force his way in here?" The Hokage gave a headshake. "I doubt Danzo believes that he could defeat me in direct battle. More likely this was part of a larger scheme. He wishes for me to be trapped in here for some purpose. And we can only wait to see his plan unfold," Makoto answered. "Just so," the Hokage affirmed. "In the meanwhile, I would like to check on Naruto." "Where is he?" "In my office," Makoto replied. "A bit scared, but mostly he's just wanting ramen." The Hokage said, "Sounds like him," as he and Makoto started down the hall. Itachi said, "Hold on," to the two. The Hokage turned to the Uchiha and said, "Yes." Itachi questioned, "Are you aware that Danzo has a Sharingan? When I tried to use genjutsu on him he countered with one." The Hokage repeated, "Sharingan." He hesitated as a thought came over him. "I've never known him to have one. I mean, he lost that eye years ago on a mission late in the First Great War. It was the same one that Kagami Uchiha died on." Itachi questioned, "Shisui's ancestor? From what I understand, he was a close comrade of yours." Hiruzen Sarutobi's face took on a deep frown. To think he had been hiding such a thing from me for all these years. It is clear that he can no longer be allowed to act freely. He asked Makoto, "Will you show me to the armory? I need attire suitable for battle." The chief of military police gave a nod. "Right this way, Lord Hokage." Sasuke made the final few turns with Shikamaru, Choji, and Hinata before they arrived at the military police headquarters. "Hey," he heard someone remark. He turned to observe a man approaching two other people who were a short distance away from the kids. The first man asked the other two, "You heard what's happening?" One of them said, "No, what's up?" "The Uchiha are holding the Hokage hostage at the military police headquarters," the first person remarked. Sasuke felt his blood run cold and came to a complete stop. One of the other males questioned, "Are you serious?" The first gave an affirmative nod. "The Uchiha are trying to take over the village, but a bunch of people are going to stop them." "We should go too," one of the other men remarked. "Yeah," the other person said. "Damn arrogant Uchiha, they've really overstepped their bounds this time." The person who had first informed them watched them go with a detached expression as the two headed for the military police headquarters. He turned down an alleyway and left after the two vanished from view. Had the Hokage been kidnapped by the Uchiha at the headquarters? Was that accurate? How about Naruto? "Hey," Shikamaru remarked, removing Sasuke from his own thoughts by placing his hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry about gossip, let's go see what's going on." Before the gang resumed their journey, Sasuke gave a nod of approval. As they rounded the last bend, they witnessed a spectacle that was unlike anything they had ever seen as children. Yelling and shouting, a crowd gathered near the military police headquarters. Many carried banners condemning the Uchiha, and others even carried basic weapons like spears and pitchforks. The mob and the target of their wrath were divided by a loose ring of what looked to be Anbu. Uncertain of how to interpret the scene in front of them, the four pupils stood in silence. When they arrived, Shikamaru inquired, "What is going on here?" "I'm not sure," Sasuke answered. The two men from earlier passed the kids. One of them looked twice. "Hey," he said, tugging at his friend's arm. "Isn't that kid a Uchiha?" The other turned to face the gathering of academy students and said, "Yeah, that's the clan head's kid brother. You think we can ransom him for the Hokage?" "Let's try it," suggested the first man. They both started going toward the kids. But before they could move closer than a few paces, a massive hand materialized between them. Sasuke followed it and the arm it was attached to back to a big man with purple line markings on his face and a massive mane of reddish-brown hair. "Papa!" screamed Choji, and as soon as the link was made, Sasuke noticed the similarities between father and son. On the other side of his palm, the Akamichi clan head turned to face the two men. "You fellas can keep going. There's nothing for you here." Choza's hand grew back to its usual size as the two were leaving, suggesting that they believed the experienced shinobi. He walked over to the gathering of students and said, "What on earth are you kids doing here? This is not a time or place for you." "We know about Naruto, Papa," Choji replied. "Naruto," repeated Choza. "What about him?" "We know that he's in there," Sasuke replied, pointing to the military police headquarters. "And that he's something called a Jinchuriki," Shikamaru continued. Choza scowled as he considered what the kids had said. "Then I can't let you just go back home. The four of you should come with me, I'll let Shikaku decide what to do with you."